And then she like told him she's like 55% Great Britain. And
Does
then,
she speak Great Britain or?
oh. Hello, my dudes, and welcome back to the Mikey and the Press Pass podcast. I'm Mike.
I am David.
Hey, so what you harping on?
888 from Illusion. From my cash at home. Illusion home.
Oh,
Cash money. Like a cash.
they
Like
cash you outside?
CACHE.
Oh.
Like a cache of weapons. Cache of cigars.
Oh.
But then it's like cash money. So then it takes on like a double entendre.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I just needed something to smoke. That was what I had in my little travel humidor. I was like,
Good standby.
I have 2 cigars in here and I'm going to pick one of them to smoke.
Yes. There's nothing wrong with a good old 888.
I think it's a great cigar.
Yeah.
It's the standby cigar in that line for me. It's like, that's what Illusion tastes like to me, is this cigar.
Yeah.
Everything else is just deviations from that.
Yeah, usually it's like the 88 or the 888.
Yeah.
Usually it's something I pick up all the time.
Yeah, they're linchpins.
Mm-hmm. I am smoking the 6-in-1 Blue Label. Cheap Man,
How is it?
Maduro, and a Visario.
Yeah, how is it?
It's good.
Because those are touch and go. Like like sometimes they're fine, and sometimes they're fire.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of you like sitting on it or how long when the shipment came in.
I haven't noticed that. Like I've noticed like if they come in and they're like fine, I don't ever notice them going from fine to great. And sometimes the ones that are great, they come in and they're just banging. It just seems to be like not a super consistent cigar. But the good news is it doesn't go from being like good to bad. It goes from being like a 6.5 to like, but when they're on, they're like a fucking like 9.5. It's like, woo.
Yeah, so far I've kept this. I don't remember when I bought this 5-pack, but it was like the first one was like, it needs a little bit of time. Then like a month or two in, then you see the cigar start to develop.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, all right, it's settling in. Right now it's like in the settle in point.
Mm.
It's like what I remember what it tastes like. So yeah, that's how I kind of feel about the shipments that has been in West Coast right now. They're just really young. I think they just brought a huge shipment of like new cigars, and they're making everything sick in the humidor.
I think part of it is too is just companies are kind of rushing to get stuff out. Like most of the box stamps you see on any of the stuff you're getting are within like a few months of like when you got it shipped at most. Every now and again you'll get something that's a little older, but it's like everything's from like May, June, July of this year, and it's like if that's the only stock you're getting, it means it's because that's all they really have. So it's like they're kind of trying to keep up with the market. They don't have time to sit on stuff, but that's really weird to me. I mean, maybe people are smoking cigars more than they ever have, but
maybe.
But yeah, I don't know. 601 Blue Labels are. It's never been a cigar that I've like aged. But like especially if you get them online, they're fairly inexpensive.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it's kind of a poor man's anniversario, and it's a really solid stick because even the low points of it, like if it's not smoking that great, it's still better than the bulk of like almost any cigar you can get for a comparable price.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, 601. I think they're being. I don't know if they roll them in a different place, but they used to be in the My Father factory.
Mm-hmm.
Not the My Father one, the one previous to that. But so like the tobacco and the quality of the construction of the roll would be pretty good.
Yeah.
So never really had too much of an issue with the construction with the cigar. So
yeah, I forget whose tobacco they use.
it was blended by Don Pepin. So
no, not who blended it, but whose tobacco they use. Do they use my father's tobacco? Because basically it's the same thing with it's rolled here. There's like 5 or 6 places where you can get cigars rolled, and there's like 4 or 5 places where like the tobacco is this tobacco. It's not really like it's different blends and different, but it's sourced from the same.
Yeah, it's gonna be like Oliva, Plasencia,
my father, and then who's the other one?
And Fuente.
Probably,
yeah.
Those
are the major ones that I know of. There's probably more than that, but those are like the big dogs.
Aganorsa Leaf.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where, like, I think that's where Davidoff gets their tobacco. I think that's where Illusion gets their tobacco. And which is weird because Aganorsa Leaf is a small company, but like their farm is like where a lot of good companies get their tobacco from. So it's
Yeah, same thing with Oliva. There's like two Olivas. The one, the Oliva cigar company that you know of, and then there's Oliva Family Farms, I guess you would
Mhm.
say. And they're two different companies.
Mm.
Even though Oliva, the cigar company, does produce their own tobacco, there's another Oliva.
Hmm.
So sometimes it gets confusing. Like, which one are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's new, man, on the relative scale of nuosity since we ranted last week?
Let's see. Oh, since the weather has been cooling down, I've been trying to start training for the Spartan race. Like it's coming up really close. I'm like, fuck, I don't think I have enough time because it's been so hot. Like the summer's been it was an Indian summer, so it just lasted like almost a month too long.
Insensitive to say that, bro. It's not cool.
Whatever.
I don't care about being sensitive. See last week's podcast.
And yeah, so I've been trying to do that. So that's fun. It just proves how like not in shape I am. It's just been like on a wake up call. I was like, fuck, I should have trained way earlier than this. So yeah, it's a game of catch up. Is just the only thing I'm really worried about with the race is that I just finish it. I don't think it would be that hard, but I don't have a or did not finish thing on the record. Like quit on the race. And I have a feeling I'm just gonna do like if you don't do an obstacle, you have to do 30 burpees, and I suck at burpees. So
I don't know what those are.
So it is like you're in a standing position, and then you get down in the push-up position, do a push-up, get up on your feet, and jump up.
Do they call it a burpee because it makes you burp?
I don't know why they call it burpee.
That seems like that would make me burp.
Yeah, or throw up. So
Maybe, yeah.
So I've been doing that. Working on that video project for like cigar reviews, and it's a fucking pain in the ass. Talking on camera, like a scripted wise, is super fucking difficult for me. Like I just blank out. Like if I'm not like my focus is usually like I'm talking here or talking to you, but once my eye line gets to the camera, I just blank out. And it was weird. I was like watching the video, I was like, fuck, there's no fucking way I can get through this.
Do you have a script?
The nice thing is with that quote unquote pilot I did, it was a test run and see what I could do with it. And I thought I could wing it. No, I couldn't.
No, you need to have a script when you're talking to the camera.
Yeah, I know. So there's some certain segments where I could actually like look down and read because I'll be doing B-roll or whatever. But when it comes down to like the actual review, that's where I run into problems because like my mind's scrambled. Like say this right, don't talk too fast. All that shit just pops in your head. So it's gonna be practice to get it down. It was fucking terrible, dude.
You can't wing
It's
stuff.
fucking terrible.
You have to have, because like you said, when you're trying to speak clearly, concisely at the right pace and all of that, you need to be able to focus on that and not really focus on what you're saying. So you should have like cue cards or
I'm probably gonna build a teleprompter.
Okay.
So I have that in mind. So yeah, that's probably gonna be the next project. And plus too, there's like a couple like factors that kind of got me like a little nervous. Like I was doing it right after my shift at West Coast on Monday night. I was already tired. And plus I was doing it in the back lounge. So I felt like I was like in a time crunch. So I was like trying to rush to get this thing done. I was like, I could fucking probably knock this out like in 45 minutes. Nope. Did not happen.
Yeah, it's like a completely different skill.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's different than writing. For sure. Why do you think that newscasters all have someone that does their writing and then they're the guy that talks on screen? Because it turns out if you're good at one, you're probably not good at the other. Like if you can write, you're probably not the kind of person that has good camera presence. And if you have good camera presence, you're probably not the kind of person that's good at writing. So it just They're
Do you
not.
feel it's like a slap in the face to call like news anchors like journalists?
I don't call them journalists.
No, but do you find it like a slap in the face when people's like, "Oh, that guy's a journalist"? Like, he's a presenter.
It depends on who
He's an
you're
anchor.
talking about.
Yeah,
I think I've gone on this diatribe before a
Walter
couple of
Cronkite.
times. Yeah, someone like Walter Cronkite, or even like modern day, like Anderson Cooper is a journalist.
Mm.
But Bill O'Reilly is not.
Yeah, he's a talking head.
He's a talking head,
Hmm.
and a news anchor for like your local news is more than likely not a journalist either. They have producers and
Geraldo.
not either. Actually, Geraldo used to be a journalist, but he hasn't been in like 30 some years.
Yeah.
But he used to be. That's how he got into that. Like he used to actually be a guy that like went out and did stuff, and like he came up with he has a background in journalism, I'm pretty sure.
Because I remember like first seeing Geraldo's when he got that chair thrown at him, and he had the busted up nose for the longest time on his what do you call those type of shows? Those like talk shows, I guess.
Yeah, he had a talk show.
Yeah.
But he also was into Al Capone's vault or whatever.
Yeah, that's like the biggest fucking stinker in the world.
Yeah.
He just took his money, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to waste like 2 hours of your life.
Yeah. He's the king of sensationalist television, and then some people like are kind of closer to a talking head, but definitely have some like who's that guy? Lou Dobbs, is that his name?
Yeah.
Or even Rachel Maddow. Like they do have some background in journalism, but I don't think that that's really what they do anymore. They're just like a personality, so they they aren't really as involved and whatever. They're just kind of ranting at you. Moreover, because they're pundits. They're not there to report the facts to you in a unbiased and objective, striving for objectivity way. They're just ranting at you with their opinions, like especially Rachel Maddow and Bill O'Reilly and a couple of other people who are like. Speaking of which, did you see that Jon Stewart's getting another show after like fucking 20 years or whatever it's been since he was on the Daily Show?
10 years maybe? But yeah, it's on Apple TV.
Yeah, has it been?
Yeah, I think it's actually less than 10 years because it was.
Seems like a long time.
Yeah. Trevor Noah did a pretty good job on the Daily Show right now, but
yeah, but
wasn't that
Colbert
far.
was on there for a long time too, and he's gone on to have his own show since then.
Colbert left a long time ago before Jon Stewart.
Oh, that's right.
Quit.
He had the Colbert Report, and that was running concurrently. He never took over the host of the Daily Show. That's right. He had like a concurrent show, and Stewart was on there for like even a year or two after Colbert moved on, right?
Way more than that. I would say like 5 years or so.
After he moved on. No, I mean after Colbert removed on from the Colbert Report.
Oh yeah, then it would be like 2 or 3 years.
Then it was probably, I wouldn't even say 2 or 3 years, probably like 1 or 2 years, and then Stewart called it quits, and then.
Well, let's see, that was 4 years ago because he left right before Trump got in office. So 5 years.
Is that all it's been?
Yep.
Gotcha. I mean, I was exaggerating when I said 20, but I thought it was more like 8 to 12.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of amazing that guy transformed the Daily Show to what it is right now. Because originally it was just kind of like The Soup, but the news with politics.
Yeah, I kind of liked it better.
Greg Kilborn.
Yeah, I know. I used to watch it when Kilby was the host.
Yeah.
I like him better than Jon Stewart simply because he's a little less serious and it was a little more like like you said, like Talk Soup or whatever they call it. So I didn't really, not that I didn't like Jon Stewart, I just didn't really, I don't really like follow politics, and I don't really care about people politicking at me, and so
grandstanding.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's the same reason I don't like Last Week with John Oliver. Like, he's funny enough. I think he's a funny guy. Hell, I would argue that he's probably funnier than Jon Stewart. He's probably funnier than Stephen Colbert. Like, John Oliver is probably one of the funniest people to come out of the Daily Show. And Colbert and Steve Carell and Jon Stewart and
it's saying a lot.
Yeah, it's saying quite a bit. There's been a few fairly funny people that came out of there, and I think that's probably because he was more closely, because John Oliver's a stand-up comic, at least he used to be. I don't know if he still does stand-up.
Yeah, I don't know if he does stand-up still.
But those guys tend to be the funnier guys, not comedic actors, like is what Stephen Colbert and Steve Carell and Samantha Bee and like a few.
Yeah, they seem like they have more of an improv background than.
Mhm.
Um,
Right, which is why Jon Stewart was successful because he was a stand-up comic. Um, Although I would argue kind of a mediocre one. Like he had some good material in the 80s and mid 90s,
mhm.
but if he had never hosted the Daily Show, I don't think very many people would even know who he is. Like I just kind of knew who he was in the way that I kind of know who some comics are that I don't listen to their comedy, like Jim Jeffries or
Yeah.
like what's a bit that he does. I don't know. I just know that he's a comic, but I don't know that he's a very good comic. Okay.
Yeah.
Malaria. Your people are afraid of that, I know.
Hot Pockets.
Yeah. No, that's Jim Gaffigan.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Proving my fucking QED.
Jim Gaffigan, Jim Jeffries, the Australian.
Fuck, I don't know. I just
I
know
think
his
Jim
name.
Jeffries, the Australian.
I
guy.
know he's a comedian.
Yeah.
It's like a Bill Engvall looking kind of guy. Like I think. But anyway, so that's cool. I mean, good for him. I mean, I won't watch it because all that shit on Apple TV looks like trash, and I won't ever watch any of it. But
I have no idea because I always look at like all the trailers for all the Apple TV stuff. It's like, well, it looks really pretty. It's like, well, it looks well produced. I have no idea what the content is.
the content all looks like trash to me. Every time I go like, wow, that looks like a really good show, like sardonically, and then it's like at the end, it's like Apple TV. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a network for it's
Yeah,
a
it's
network for idiots. I'm convinced.
It seems like they're not trying to what Apple TV is trying to do is they're not going after like the Amazons or Netflix of the streaming service. It seems like they're kind of positioning themselves in a way just like HBO, like really high quality produced stuff, and not a lot of content. It seems like.
It's every single trailer I've seen for every single show looks downright terrible. It looks not even something that I would call passable.
Bro.
It looks fucking terrible.
What's the other one? Foundation. I know that everyone loves those books, so I have no idea.
I don't know. Everything looks fucking awful. Like, yeah, I saw a trailer for that Ted Lasso show. That didn't look awful, but it didn't look good.
Yeah.
Like, if that's the best you have to offer, then that's fucking downright shitty. But anyway, so you're worried you're not going to be able to kind of hack it for the got off on a diatribe there for a minute, but you're the Spartan race thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna try to just get as much work in before the race. It's just that's all you have to do.
When is it again? Remind me.
The beginning of December. I think like the first weekend or something like that.
Okay.
So, it'd be interesting because I don't think my brothers are training at all.
Oh, are they doing it with you?
Yeah, yeah. So it's my middle brother. He's pretty active in general. So he's in pretty good shape, I guess. And my other one, the youngest one, is like, bro, what are you doing? You just can't rely on your youth to get through this course.
Do you have 3 brothers?
I have 2 younger brothers.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, you threw me off because you said my middle brother.
Yeah.
You mean the middle brother.
Yeah.
You're the oldest. He's the second oldest.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you said my middle brother made it sound like you had 3 brothers and he was the one in the middle. But I was going to say, I thought you only had 2. You have 2, right? So you're
Mhm.
just saying the next youngest to you.
Yeah.
Got you. And the difference between you and your youngest brother is like 16 years or something, isn't it?
16 years.
Yeah.
Is 9 and 16.
Yeah.
So pretty big jump. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, so they're both closer to each other in age than your middle brother is to you in age.
yes.
Got it.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. That's it.
Is it like a family competitive thing to like which one of you does the best out of the 3?
No, we're not competitive like that.
No.
Yeah. Because I just told him, like, I'm just gonna do it to my pace, you do to your pace. Just try to do it well.
Oh, okay. You don't have that kind of family where it's like, I'm gonna fucking step on your neck, bro.
Plus it's a team thing. We're a team. So
Oh,
that's a thing. So you don't want to kill your other teammates, right?
no.
No?
I mean, even somebody on your team, if anything, from my experience, I'm usually more competitive with people that are on my team
Mm-hmm.
because there's no animosity there. I'm not trying to ruin them, so it's like the competition is more done in good spirit,
Mhm.
right? The whole point of is like pushing each other to be better. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a few things I'm really worried about is rope climbing because I have no access to a rope to climb.
Sure.
I've never I don't think they have the ones with the knots in it. That's the only time I've ever done a rope climb is the one with knots. So
Yeah,
you have to do that whole
you're not built to climb a rope. I hate to break it to you, but you don't have the kind of
man, I'm
physique that
like the
you're.
best right now. You don't
I
even
don't
know.
think you have the kind of physique where that's going to come naturally to you. Um, but if there's things where you need to like, I don't know, grab a fucking medicine ball and put it over something really quickly, you probably will do pretty well at that.
Yeah, I know they have that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just like going to be like the strong man, right? There's probably going to be some things that are more naturally for your physique, and then some things you're going to be like, fuck. And yeah, rope climbing sucks because it like I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't because like I'm built more like somebody that can just kind of do that naturally. But it's like you said, it's something you can't exactly let go
Yeah, I need to
train.
actually climb a rope to practice that shit.
Yeah.
It's not like you can just do a ton of like deadlifts and like,
Mm-mm.
"Ah, I'm good for the day."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's certain skills that I kind of want to get a handle of,
Sure.
and I just got to figure out a way to train that stuff. There is like a gym in my area that actually trains specifically for Spartan races.
Mm.
But I was like, why do I want to pay them? I don't know, whatever. I'm kind of
Because apparently,
yeah, if
like,
they have the
yeah,
equipment, I might have to do that.
yeah.
So yeah. And went to a baby shower, saw a whole bunch of friends I haven't seen in years.
Did
That was fun.
the baby get so wet?
Yeah, got wet.
Splash. Whose baby?
uh Holly and Chris's baby. I don't know when the due date is, but yeah. All the breaking friends and got to meet some people that were added to the crew. Some of the younger guys. Saw them. That was good.
They were added to the crew like of your friends, because or do some of your friend like your some
They
of your old break,
recruited. They recruited people into it. There's like the old blood goes away, new blood comes in, type of thing.
but like some of like a good chunk of your old breaking friends still break.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that.
yeah. They'll show up and practice or go to a competition once in a while, but it's not like the younger guys. Like they're in their early to mid 20s and they still compete. And it's really nice to like actually have a conversation with these guys because we like some of them I went to Mexico with for a bachelor party, and it's we have a rapport now.
Hmm.
So it's not just like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, you're really old. Okay,
You like
cool.
breaking?
Yeah,
Breaking's pretty cool. Did you see that movie Breaking?
yeah.
Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo?
Yeah, someone actually mentioned that. I was like, why the fuck are we talking about breaking right now? I was like, we're somewhere else now. Let's talk about other shit.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Yeah, so yeah, I was wondering where you were. I was like, who are these people? I don't know who these people are.
I have a lot of friends.
I guess, yeah, I noticed.
Yeah,
You're like the opposite of me.
yeah. And there's like this fucking dumb joke that keeps. It's like who invited their uncle to the party? Because like I'm the oldest guy out of my friend group, so I always fucking pull that shit. I'm like, all right, thanks guys.
Oh, wait, I thought you guys were all like a lot of you were in high school together.
Yeah, but I'm like the oldest. Like I'm the first person to turn 39,
Okay.
so I'm the old man.
Well, I mean, I guess when you know somebody that long, like, because that's weird, because I just don't assume, like, if just somebody isn't younger than 25, they're not older than 45, I just think of them as my age.
Yeah,
Just,
it's just a joke. It's
yeah.
just yeah, it's funny.
Well, it's probably also, too, is that you're not married and don't have kids.
Yeah,
That's probably part of the joke, if I had to guess, which is like you're older than everybody, but
no, no, I'm just old.
uh,
That's pretty much it.
hmm.
Yeah, yeah. How are you? How's your week?
um. Well, I finished working at Aloni. I worked my last shift on Saturday, and
Give him the double bird. Fuck y'all.
nope, I just left inauspiciously. A couple of people were like, "Hey, I heard you're not working here anymore." I'm like, "That's true. Today's my last shift."
Oh,
Well,
oh, oh.
what are you moving on to? I'm like, I don't understand what that means. Well, like, are you doing something else? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do something else. Did you get another job? Like, no, I just don't want to work here anymore, man.
Mm-hmm.
We done here? Like, There's a reason I didn't say anything to you about it, because
Yeah, did one of those Irish goodbyes.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like friends with anybody that goes in there or works there. Like, I'm friendly with several of the people, but
Hmm.
I just whatever. But
Yeah, well, it's kind of different from like what West Coast does. They like hire within. It's like hire within their customer pool, so they're kind of familiar with the people there, right?
yeah,
I think that bodes well for the most part, but to be someone that just hired on, no one really knows. You really don't know the culture of the shop until you start working there for quite a while.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It makes it a longer learning curve.
mhm,
Um, but it makes it easier to kind of maintain that like you're a guy that works here
mhm.
kind of thing.
Hey, can you get me that? I'm working right
Yeah,
now,
I
bro.
don't work here. Well, it's just like I used to happen when I go into West Coast when I wasn't working there, and people would just like they don't know whether like, are you working? I don't see the I don't know, like, you're here and you worked here before, but I don't know, I don't stay up to speed on like whether you are or not working.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's fair. So that was something. I got a few more assignments to work on to be journalism man,
Whoa.
a couple of which seem like they're pretty interesting, and I've kind of been
You put the press in press pass.
put the press and press pass. Well, I've been putting it off, like a couple of them. I'm
No.
like been meaning to get on top of, but then I had work, and then I had was trying to work on stuff for the RPG, and wanted to watch the Sopranos movie, and so I just like each day I just keep putting it off. I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I should probably get on top of that. Um, so I'm set to have some more free time now that I'm not working at Aloni. So try to fill that time with writing and other stuff. So that should be cool. Went and bought some records today. Went to Rasputin.
Ooh.
That was
First
cool.
time there?
No, I've been there before.
Okay.
Just Diana wanted to go over to the plant nursery today because she was like rewarding herself
Uh-huh.
for her performance review at work.
Hmm. Got
She
a
was
plant baby.
more just stuff to transplant the plants that she already has into
Mm.
like bigger pots because they're growing as they do.
The whole plant thing, is it like a current trend, or is it people amongst our age just that's like what you do, you get more plants or some shit like that? Because I noticed it's a very common thing,
It's
especially going to the baby shower. Like people are talking about plants. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's something that like Diana like talks about or whatever, but she just, she always wanted to get some plants for the balcony or whatever. We don't have a lot of them, and she's not like all into it, and I doubt she would really talk about it because she's not like a. To me, gardening is a hobby. If you have a garden, like Jeb at Aloni has a garden, he
Oh, really?
gardens, right? So he talks gardening with people because that is a hobby. It requires a lot of upkeep and maintenance. But just having like damn house plants or plants out on your balcony, I don't think really constitutes a hobby. It's just like a thing. I think you get to I think at a certain age that appeals to you. And I think that for some people that's been accelerated because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely become a bigger thing. And like I teased Diana, like, oh, you're like a plant mama now. And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, I fucking hate when people say that. She's like, that's so obnoxious. Bad enough when people say like, like they're a dog dad
I
or
got
a
a fur
cat mama. Yeah, I got
baby.
fur baby. You're like, and now it's like now you got plants too. Like you need like go have a kid. That's what you obviously fucking want. But no, she just we have some herbs that we grow out on the
Yeah, you
balcony.
do. I don't
Herbs,
know.
bro. Fucking yeah.
This cat's always sleeping all the time. I wonder why.
Um so yeah, so we went to the plant nursery because she did well on her performance review without, I don't know, she didn't really do well. It was like I mean she did well, but it wasn't like the review went well
Huh.
because I guess I'm using the Ross phraseology. Normally a performance review is like you talk to the person, they give you some critique, and you kind of like talk about the prospect of the future, and like how to improve and what you're doing right, and what you could be doing better, and communication, and this, that, and the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you kind of negotiate like a raise and maybe some extra perks, things that you might want, and then there's a back and forth, right? It didn't go like that at all. Like her boss basically just sat her down and told her like, "You're doing a great job. I really like everything you're doing, so keep it up." And she's like, "Is there anything else that you need?" And
Money.
she's like, "Well, I think I should be making this, and I'd like another person for my team and a few of these other things to help me do my job better." I was like, "Okay, that doesn't seem unreasonable. You'll have a talk with the HR lady, um, tomorrow or sometime later this week."
Mhm.
She's like, "Oh, okay." So okay, if you don't need anything else from me, then I'll talk to you later. And then she's like, "And then so I thought that like, um, she was like, I thought that the HR lady was gonna call me like in like 4 or 5 days." She's like, "She called me the next day,
Mm.
and it was just like, okay, so it looks like everything is set on your raise and everything. It looks like you're gonna be like da 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 whatever." And she's like, and they gave her more than she asked for.
That's awesome.
And she's like, "I thought I was like gonna talk with the HR lady about like going back and forth about a salary." And she's
Uh-huh.
just like, "Oh, I can just see here that starting November 1, like your raise kicks into effect, and it looks like there's probably gonna be like a month or so before we can like hire a new person for your team. And then these other things that you asked for are requisition, but once the financing comes through for them or whatever, then they'll those get in the works too. And just wanted to make sure you didn't have any questions for me." And she's like, "No, that all sounds good." She's like, "Okay, well, talk to you later."
That's awesome,
And she's
dude.
like,
Hey, is this supposed to go this way? Am I getting punked?
"No,
Ashton Kutcher, where are you?
yeah, kind of." But I was like, "See, what did I say?" I was like, it's good. You're doing a good job. Like, she has a very difficult time just kind of accept. Like, for me, unless someone criticizes my work directly, I just assume I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
Unless someone says like, "Hey, you're fucking up," which they don't.
But
Then I
sometimes it's like they're not saying anything, so I don't know. That's a good sign or it's a bad sign.
are they still in? Here's the
It's
thing.
like one of those things where like they're just plotting your demise. Like, all right, let's see what this motherfucker's doing right now. You
Maybe.
fucked up, bro. You fucked up. All right, we
But
got
then
this
why
shit.
would you even like worry about it?
Got
Like,
this
that's
shit.
my attitude, is that like you work for, if you trust that your
How much rope
bosses,
does he need to hang?
what's that?
I'm just giving enough rope for him to hang himself. Type of shit.
Maybe. Forewarned is forearmed, and so it seems like if you are a direct, confident, business-oriented person, if someone is not producing something that you want in the way that you want, why would you assume that person wouldn't say something to you? They will say something to you, unless they just don't want you to work there, and in which case, why do you want to work somewhere that doesn't want you?
Yeah.
And moreover, because it looks really bad as a general, I know this for a fact, that if you let someone go, fire them, let them go, whatever euphemism for fire that you want to use,
We
you,
lost them. Where'd you lose them?
yeah, yeah, exactly. He passed on.
Yeah.
Oh, he died? Yeah, people die. But anyway, you will get unemployment if they will ask you directly, like, "Hey, have you been given an opportunity to correct these problems that you were fired? Why were you fired? I was fired for X. Have you been talked to about X before? Is it in your file? Were you given ample opportunity to correct it?" And if you say no, and the other person says like, "Well, no, we just didn't feel like we should," they go, "Okay, yeah, you're getting unemployment for like a year from those people."
Mm.
Because their attitude is, if you want to fire somebody, you have to let them know they're fucking up in some way. And don't get me wrong, I don't think the government should be the arbitrator of that shit. But it does seem fair, if you're gonna regulate it and you're gonna dole out fucking money for somebody being unemployed, that only seems fair that you should communicate to them what your desires are, and if they don't remediate those problems, then you fire them. You don't just fire somebody because it was like, "Oh, you were 5 minutes late to work today. You're fired." It's like, well, hey, dude, it's like the first time I've ever been late, and yeah, you shouldn't be late, but that seems a little unfair. But for me, it was like, if someone told me that, like, "You're 5 minutes late to work, you're fired," that just immediately makes me not want to work there anyway. I
Oh,
don't
yeah,
want
for
to
sure.
work somewhere that
Yeah.
like you're not even going to talk to me about being 5 minutes late one time.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want to. And so, but I'm much more cavalier with my employment prospects than some people, so I get that. Anyway, So yeah, so she did well in the performance review or whatever. So she was like, "Oh, I was trying to think of like something I could treat myself to." Then I was like, I challenged her to not. I was like, if you're gonna treat yourself, it shouldn't be jewelry, clothes, or shoes.
Man, trying to live life, bro. Fucking try to just drip with this shit, bro. I'll mess with my drip. Fuck with my drip, you're gonna die.
Okay.
Hey, do you? You do you. You got permission.
It was a challenge. It wasn't like I care. I just
You want to drip, drip out. You know what I'm saying?
no, because she professes to like
Drip.
to want for less, right? To want fewer things, because we are both of the opinion that that constant want, especially for material shit, is not a good thing for you in general. And so I was like, try to think of something that you could reward yourself with that isn't one of those three things. And so she was like, well, I kind of want to transplant the plants into bigger pots so they
The
have a little
need,
more
the want is suffering. Life is suffrage.
suffrage.
Suffering.
That's some Buddhist philosopher, isn't it?
You know, I might be foreshadowing on something.
All right. There you go.
You know.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Anyway, so yeah, we did that. Went over to Plant Nursery. Went over Taco Bravo's over there. I haven't had Taco Bravo in like a million years.
Oh, okay. I'm surprised it's still around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they hook it up, man. Like when I've gotten it before,
Uh-huh.
like when Bob used to bring it in, I don't know what Taco Bravo he goes to, but they were like normal Taco Bell sized tacos. These tacos were fucking huge,
Oh,
dude.
that's the one he goes to. That
The-
Taco Bravo.
Right over by Rasputin?
Mhm.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Because they hooked it up.
Mm.
I was like, man, must have been a black guy in the kitchen. That's probably what it was.
Man, I'm making the way I like it.
I'm gonna do it up like I like. Fucking A.
The best.
Yeah. Black guy tacos. The best, man. The best.
So what kind of records you got?
I bought 9 Inch Nails' first record.
Mm.
I bought Billie Eilish's second record. And then Diana got Iron and Wine's, I don't know what record it is, but the one with like all their hits on it, right? Like the most well-known record of theirs. I think it's called Naked as We Came, I think is the name of the record. But anyway, so she got that. Good stuff. I almost got a Godspeed record, but then I was like, when am I ever going to listen to this? Because Diana doesn't like it.
I
Put it on.
I don't know.
Yeah, so they're like this really fucking esoteric. I don't even know how to describe them. Like if you know who Mogwai or like Explosions in the Sky are,
I've heard those names before, but I
I
might have heard their music, but I don't know.
Sigaros, if you know who they are.
Mm.
Anyway, so like ambient rock bands, Godspeed. I mean, for lack of a better word, it's classical music. It's violins and horns and stuff like that. But then they also like sample stuff into the music, and it's this weird. It's very weird, and there's really no lyrics in it, and most people just hate it. They're just like, I don't like this, and I love it. Like one of my favorite bands and one of my favorite records from my favorite bands. And they do the East Hastings track that's in that scene in 28 Days Later where he's walking around the empty city. And so like an album will have like 3 or 4 tracks on it that are like 20 minutes, 18 to 24 minutes.
Oh, one of those bands.
Right. It's like it's orchestral music, orchestral music. I really like it, but I usually put on records either when Diana is home or so that we can listen to them together. And then when she's not home, I usually just read or watch television or play video games or something that I don't do when she's not there. So I was like, well, I really like this record and I really would like to own it because it is one of my favorite records. But I was just like, when am I ever going to listen to this? I feel like I'll just put it on and she'll just be like, I don't like this. Can you turn it off?
Turn that racket off.
Yeah, which is weird. I don't get it. I mean, it's not like it's not like
it's like offensive.
Not really. It's like industrial music. You know, I get why that's offensive to people. Like I put that on and they're like, you like this? And I'm like, I love this. This is awesome, right? But some people are just like, it just hits the ear in this just grating, this aggressive way. Like people that don't like heavy metal.
Yeah.
People that don't like heavy metal, you put on some Slayer, they're like, dude, what the fuck is this? Like, Jesus, chill the fuck out.
Yeah. The best thing you said is like, it just sounds like noise to you. I'm like, yeah, it just sounds like noise. Like I don't, whatever. It's not for me, so I don't really care.
It's the same way with like why I don't like hip hop as much
Mhm.
because it just most of it sounds very samey to me, and I can't really delineate the things in it that are like supposedly good and why they're good because they all just kind of sound like if it's particularly good, I'm like, oh, I like this, and I could just acknowledge that I like it.
Yeah, that's the problem with, at least radio, mainstream hip hop is kind of it's flavor of the month. Whatever that flavor is, it's gonna be on all the time until the next trend comes in.
Yeah,
So it's very trendy music.
yeah, it all
Um,
just sounds like Drake to me.
yeah,
Most of it,
yeah, yeah.
most of
He
it
has a
sounds like Drake.
yeah, because he has a big influence on kind
Yeah,
of modern music right now.
yeah, and I
But
hate him. I hate his
yeah,
music. I don't know him. I'm sure he's a fine dude, but I hate his music.
uh-huh.
And
Yeah, that's why I tend to still listen to like the stuff that I grew up with, or even older stuff like
yeah,
Tribe, Wu Tang, Rakim.
yeah. See, I like all those bands,
Yeah.
but I don't own any of their albums
Mhm.
because I'm not like when it's on, I'm like, this is good. Or like when you put on Atmosphere, I'm like, oh, I like this.
Yeah.
Sounds like I don't like. I couldn't even pin down. I'm like, is this newer music? Is this
Mhm.
stuff from like 20 years ago? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because I've heard I might have mentioned this on the podcast before, but it was like people like the music that was being made from the 80s to the 90s is like that boom bap kind of sound to it. It's kind of like the equivalent to like playing acoustic guitar for hip hop. Like it's very throwbacky, and people are like, oh, that's kind of old school and weird.
yeah, it sounds like it was made on like a Mr. Microphone or something.
Yeah, the big boom bap, like four on the floor, fucking just like maybe some samples in the background with like a drum machine.
Yeah,
And it's like it's kind of quaint in today's standards.
yeah, because it's less polished.
Yeah.
But
It's like dirty, gritty kind
right,
of
but
bit.
to me, like, I guess, like, I kinda like the sound of that because what sounds quaint to me is, like, late '70s, early '80s rap, like the, Rapper's Paradise,
Yeah.
kinda Slick Rick, like
Yeah.
and that stuff's cool in, like, a kitschy kinda way, but it
Mhm.
doesn't, like but maybe it's because I'm from the Midwest and the whole, like, rap battle culture thing was
Yeah.
really big out there, and I kinda like music that affects that, like it's the rap equivalent of, like, garage metal
Yeah.
or garage
Yeah.
rock,
Yeah.
right? Like
Underground like rap
and
out
it
there.
sounds like that, and I
Yeah.
like that, like, aesthetic, and then usually if it's especially because that pared back aesthetic is I think probably what it is, to cut myself off, is that I think what it is that, like, modern rap seems to be predominantly fixated on the beat, and rap from that era seems to be predominantly fixated on the lyrics, and to
Yes.
me, rap is about, like, clever lyrics
Hmm.
that go along with the beat, and the beat is really, like, secondary because rap is, like, just poetry to a beat,
Yeah.
and so if it's got clever lyrics, it appeals to me in the same way that, like, Bob Dylan's music appeals to me, like, Bob Dylan is a great lyricist, arguably the greatest lyricist ever, and that's much more interesting to me because like the beats it just sounds like
It
that
should be the backdrop. Because like for me, like the forefront of the music should be the lyrics. Right. And then the beats, the backdrop. It shouldn't be the other way around.
it's yeah because it sounds like now they
Yeah.
like come
Yeah.
up with a catchy
Yeah.
beat, a
Yeah.
catchy hook, and then they write lyrics that kind of go with a cadence to that,
Yes.
and they're
Yes. Yes.
usually super duper simplistic
Hmm.
lyrics, and it's just like that seems more doo-woppy to me than anything, and I
Yeah.
don't care for it, and
Hmm.
it just sounds like just
Yeah. The writing style, like now versus maybe 20, 30 years ago is very different.
yeah,
Like maybe the lyrics came first, then they found a beat to use. Now it's the other way around.
yeah, and it's like I don't get like it's like that gives you a general sense of like how bleak it is when guys like Kendrick Lamar are like, "Oh man, his lyrics are so substantive." It's like, yeah, like you know who fucking Aesop Rock is. You've heard that guy, right?
Yeah.
Like or even like the first few albums from Wu Tang.
Hmm.
Like,
Oh, like something from Jizza or something like that.
yeah, it's like that stuff is like lyrically complex and actually about shit. And like it's been a wasteland for 15 years. And then someone like Kendrick Lamar comes along and like I don't even think that he's, like, all that great at rhyming or that all of his stuff is
Uh,
all that, like, substantive. It just compared to the field, it's an order of magnitude better.
no, I could definitely like I'm not a huge Kendrick Lamar fan, but like, actually sitting down and listening to it and then maybe having like the lyrics on screen to read it at the same time. He's there. He's neck and neck with like he's neck and neck with maybe Aesop and Jizza, I would say.
I don't know. Maybe I just
But
haven't listened
the
to
thing
enough
is
of his
like
music.
his style is very it's very acquired taste
Hmm.
because it's kind of just uh it's almost always the same. Like the scheme's always the same, very fast, very lyrically dense, but it's not the flow is not as pleasing to the ear
Hmm.
with something like Aesop, right?
I don't know. Everybody seems to love him, and I'm like, they gave this guy a Nobel Prize. That seems a little premature.
The
But
best. He'd bring
um,
in peace.
yeah, I blame Kanye for all this shit because Kanye brought in all that like super high level like gospel stuff that is like really about the music first and foremost,
Hmm.
and gives you this sound of like something happening in a fucking cathedral.
Yeah.
And I think from that point forward, like once he got big and became like known as this guy, then it was like more emphasis on like the ambience of the song,
Hmm.
but it's complete. And I don't even like Kanye West, but I will say that it seems to misunderstand the reason that he's successful, which is creating a sense of space with sound and tonal variety and like all these things that are happening auditorily that give you this kind of like gospel feel.
Yeah.
And that is different than just like, oh, it's got to have a good catchy beat. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, but that's not really, you're missing the point there, I think.
Yeah. I think the biggest like yeah, the thing that you can say about Kanye, he's not the greatest lyricist at all. I think he's about average. But the whole like his idea of having like a really big soundstage within that track, it sounds like you said, it's huge. So it's like kind of a wall of sound that we haven't really seen in like mainstream rap before, or rap in general. Having it that big of a soundstage, because maybe I think the criticism with a lot of like if you go to like music festivals or anything like that, like rap music doesn't do well in those type of uh forums.
No, it's a small scale
It's a small
forum.
scale thing. It's like
Yeah.
maybe in a warehouse, maybe in a place like the size of this, and it does very well.
Yeah,
But
that's
with
part. I think that's part of the reason I like that whole like underground sound because
Mhm,
it seems to play to the whole like almost beat poetry element
mhm,
of rap that I actually like. But it's not like stadium rock. It's not like fucking AC/DC is meant to be listened to in a giant stadium at full volume, and
yeah,
then you get like the full effect of it.
mhm.
Same way some movies are meant to be viewed on the big screen. You couldn't like people are like, oh yeah, the new Blade Runner. Yeah, I watched that on my phone. It's like
Fuck that.
you did not fucking watch the new Blade Runner at all
Yeah,
then. Like you didn't see it in the theater or at least on some gigantic screen. You missed the entire point,
yeah.
right?
Can you imagine just watching like you're watching Fury Road on your phone?
No.
That'd be like a disservice to like
I know, and I'm not like, a whatever cinephile, but it's the
some movies you need to watch. Like was it 19
17.
1917?
Yeah,
You needed to watch that in
I
theaters.
didn't though. I
Oh,
saw it on the small and I was like, man, I really feel like I missed out on something
mhm,
here.
yeah.
But like,
It was an experience.
yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. And it's fucking Roger Deakins. I think anything Roger Deakins films probably deserves to be put on the big screen.
Mhm.
But it's the same thing with music. It's like putting like I don't know, listening to Beethoven on your fucking phone, like in the speaker. It's just like, dude,
Like a
seriously.
cup attached to it. So you can
Yeah, it's just like, oh God, it's just I feel the same way about like a lot of different types of music. But
mhm.
but rap is meant to be kind of like,
In the headphones.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's up close and personal.
Mhm.
It's the melee of music.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I do give Kanye a lot of credit for kind of shifting that paradigm, but I also think that he part of the problem with that guy is he mistakes. He's like, I do big music, and so I am big. uh, no,
Okay,
like
Kanye.
you did a good thing. You made a tall cake, but it doesn't
Mhm,
make the cake good
mhm.
necessarily. It doesn't make you good just because you made a tall cake. But anyway,
Moving on. Let's
mhm.
see. Got any cool news?
I read this article in the Wall Street Journal about um the impending collapse of elite universities programs and kind of, it doesn't really, the article doesn't really posit a solution, but it's just kind of drawing attention, in particular to Columbia. So it was of interest to me because I almost went to Columbia. So I applied there and I got accepted, and I was like, okay, this is going to be great. Columbia is a great school,
Mhm.
journalism and all that. It's like the journalism school. And
Mm.
yeah, no. And so they let me in for whatever fucking reason.
Uh-huh.
Bad academic year, I guess. Not a lot of qualified applicants or some shit. Um,
It's a poor draft year, guys.
yeah, it was a poor draft year.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know, probably had something to do with the fact that I was poor. I think we had some sort of like community outreach program
Yeah.
to help the poor or some shit. But yeah, okay, so I was considering that, and then I kind of like looked at the cost of tuition, looked at the cost of living in New York City, and my prospect of scholarships and loans, and was like, probably, maybe not.
Mhm.
And apparently that was a really good decision, because this article was detailing some people, like in particular, for like fine arts and stuff, like their film program, which is a really well-known film program, but some
Mhm.
of these grad students have like what amounts to like $300,000 worth of debt, and they're like, most of them are doing nothing. Like
Yeah.
they're making 15, 16, $17 an hour working wherever. And it was talking about how, because of the emphasis on people going to graduate school, for the first time in like basically ever, the cost of the grad programs exceeds the cost of undergraduate programs,
Mm.
like on a value basis.
Mhm.
And to me, it just reminds me of this giant, it's a component of the giant lie that you're sold on about college, which is that you have to go to college to be successful. And now it's just getting a step further, where people are like looking at it like they have to go to graduate school at an elite university, and the prospect of your earning potential based on an MFA in film from, say, Columbia, and how the article kind of details how little fucks the university have to give about that shit, about like controlling costs or whatever. Although I was reading something in here, and I meant to look into it, but it was talking about how one of, it was, I think, Yale, which, don't get me started on fucking Yale, but um where is it? It's like Yale's drama school or something.
Mhm.
It just very offhandedly mentioned how they just like, they don't collect tuition anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
It was just like, I was like, what?
Just show up.
Yeah. Okay. Because I mean, the crux of the article is just basically how, like, you would think, like, okay, I'll just avoid, I'm not in a position to go to an elite university anyway, but, and, you know, I don't want to go to college. So what do I care if these people dump their money away? And the reason you care is because you're going to pay for that shit. The taxpayers will ultimately end up subsidizing this shit, because people have just been trying to appeal to the administrators to tap the wealth that universities like Columbia have, something like a nearly $2 billion endowment. And they use that money to, not to give back to the students or make their tuition less expensive. They just build more shit so that they can get more donors, so that they can maintain a $2 billion endowment.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so
It's like Tony's daughter going to Columbia.
right. It's see, what is it? I'm trying to find if it's Yale. But yeah, they just like kind of mentioned it, and I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean like Yale doesn't charge tuition anymore? Like for their, I think it just specifically said for their drama school. How do they manage that? Like yada yada yada. But yeah, this article seems to be kind of picking on Columbia a little bit, which whatever, fair. And I would say that one of the criticisms I have of the article is that, one, everybody seems to be making claims that, like, you know, Columbia is a top, the education that I got, all the students and everything source say the education that I got was great, and the faculty are great. But they just kind of breeze past that without acknowledging, like, well, you realize that the faculty being great and being expected to be commensurate to the fact that they are great is a large component of why your tuition is expensive.
Yes.
And they don't detail, like, And don't get me wrong, I'm sure that is a bunch of administrative bullshit and all of this, but it would be helpful to know, say, what percent of your tuition that you pay in a semester is going into the pocket of the instructor. Because generally speaking, if you do think that your teachers are fantastic at educating you, the higher that percent is, the more comfortable you are with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I said it costs $5,000 to take this class, you're like, oh, that seems reasonable.
Or
I'm
you
like,
end up at the end of the class, I didn't learn shit. This thing sucked.
yeah, or if you just said like, okay, yeah, but how much of that is like the instructor's time and education? You're like, well, only about a third. I'm like, well, what am I paying for the rest of it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like to have a LGBTQ center over here that you'd never use, or whatever. It's like, okay, well, maybe
You
I.
got a cool projector. It's
It
pretty
just,
cool, guys.
and so it seems to not acknowledge that at all, which is particularly peculiar because one of the writers of the article is an adjunct professor at Columbia,
Mm.
and it seems like, you're kind of not really detailing that to the degree to which you would expect them to, in the interest of kind of drawing attention to something that's problematic these days or whatever. But no, I just thought it was interesting to kind of draw into focus that you just think like this has been trending up for a while, tuition costs, and part of me was kind of a little like cocking my eyebrow at it because it's like I feel like it just slots into this whole narrative that is driving engine toward like, yeah, see, this is why we need like free college tuition. It's like I don't buy into that line of thinking, which is this is why I don't talk about this shit with most people, because it's got to be like, if you don't think that college tuition is should be free, then it must be because you think that everything is fine and dandy the way it is. And I don't really fit neatly into either of those camps. Like, obviously this shit is broken in some way. It was like a $300,000 education from Columbia that gets you fuck all. And the university apparently has no responsibility to change its habits and its behaviors in any fucking way. And part of that is an issue
Just let the
because,
market do its thing. If you don't like their shit, don't go there. Right? It's a whole prestige thing. It's like, who gives a fuck about that kind of shit?
but that's what I'm saying is that you could take that attitude. Like, if you don't like their shit, don't go there. But
Mhm.
like, you and I, our tax money will fucking pay to subsidize that shit. Like, plain and simple.
I
Like,
live there.
it's not good. It's federal fucking money. Like, government just does shit with your money.
Uh-huh.
And so I just don't think it's a prudent use of that money. And so that's the only reason that I feel like it is my business in some way. I could just think that people are deluded and stupid. But yeah, okay, so they have no incentive or responsibility at all to like, but you see when universities have tried to do something about it, that also has fucking blowback where they're like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to charge more for programs that don't need a lot of faculty support and probably aren't going to yield very good results in the market. So it's like, if you really want to study gender studies, they're like, we can't support an entire program on this, right? We have a waiting list for like our engineering school or mathematics school or whatever.
Yeah,
And
be a
meanwhile,
STEM lord.
right, and meanwhile, we have very few people that want to go to this program, but the amount of money we're funneling into this program is disproportionate based on the interest. So one of two things needs to happen. We either need to cut funding from that program, there will be fewer faculty devoted to it, fewer resources devoted to it, or you need to pay more for it. And anytime a university's tried to do that, like, people just throw a fucking tantrum. See, this is like all like cutting the arts. Like, this is what they're doing, is they're just trying to get rid of the arts, and it's, there's just no value in the arts. And it's like, okay, so they're cutting it. So if you don't want them to cut them, that means you have to pay more for it. Well, that's not fair. It's
Yeah.
like, no, it is fair,
Yeah.
because it's like not a thing that is in high, like, it has to subsidize the program somehow. And so it's like, what the fuck are they supposed to do? And so they just kind of go on doing on what they've been doing, and people just complain about it. And I feel like they're just like, we're gonna try to make as much money as we can before the inevitable government hammer comes down and just forces us to do X, Y, or Z. And that's not a good way to think about it, because that's just likely to be so much worse than some minor adjustments and tweaks along the way that would help correct the problem. You're talking about something as big as university and education policy. A minor tweak on something over, say, 5 or 6 years can have a tremendous impact, for better or worse. And I feel like there's little acknowledgement of that. So I don't know. Wasn't so much germane about the news because it was like a feature thing, so much as it just kind of gets me thinking about random shit. Anyway, what about you? You too saw that Captain Kirk is going to space.
Yes. This is coming from AP News.
Mhm.
Those guys are kind of cool, I guess. All those Associated Press people.
Yeah.
Those guys. William Shatner will fly to space aboard Blue Origin rocket. Dateline, Cape Canaveral, Florida. Captain Kirk is rocketing into space next week, boldly going where no other sci-fi star has gone. Jeff Bezos' space travel company, Blue Origin, announces Monday that Star Trek actor William Shatner will blast off from West Texas. Actually, I always wonder about that West Texas thing. Is the place called West Texas, Texas? Or is it West Texas, like the western part of Texas?
I think there actually is a town called West Texas.
Yeah, I was wondered about that. And everyone makes a joke about it, and then I never get an answer.
I think there actually is a place
Okay.
called West Texas. Anyway.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. Like, it's once those Blue Origin and whatever Virgin Galactic, once they started off their programs, it was kind of just like an an explosion of space tourism. Like the floodgates open. I guess the Russians are sending in an actor and a filmmaker to actually rocket them to the space station. They're going to be filming something there. And then was it? And I think a recent thing, I didn't know about this until like today. Apparently, there was an orbital flight through SpaceX. They had a crew there for like a couple days, just flying around and going back. It was like a whole like reality TV thing. I think they're linked in with Netflix. I think there's gonna be some sort of special coming out of it. So
That's weird.
yeah, so it's pretty interesting. Like I don't, I'm surprised they're letting someone that old up in
He's
space.
got to be like 90 years old.
Yeah, he's 90.
Yeah.
He actually is like, for even though he's like overweight, he walks around pretty well.
Yeah. Well, and he seems pretty cognitively
Oh yeah,
there.
yeah.
I mean, he does seem like a caricature of himself at this point.
Yeah. There's an actual funny, like a funny thing. They had him sit down and then like rate people's impressions of him. It's like, I don't sound like that. I don't know why they keep on making that voice.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, he seems like, so that's the thing though, is like, to me, if he's that much of a caricature of himself, he's self-aware and he has a well-developed sense of irony, and he can know where to toe that line. And to me, that's an indicator that he's cognitively pretty good. But yeah, by the way, we were wrong. West Texas is just a loosely defined border area.
Oh, okay, so it's not a place.
Oh. Well, it is a place, but it's just
it's not a town called West or West Texas, Texas.
Yeah, I always thought it was called West Texas because otherwise it would be written West, comma Texas, like the name.
Yeah,
North Carolina.
Yeah,
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah, well, I guess like when people say, "Oh, Northern California," oh, is that a town in California? I don't know.
The Midwest.
But yeah, so it's pretty interesting, like all the development that's happening with like privatized space travel. It's kind of fascinating. And apparently, like for this flight, there was an auction. I think it was like 20-something million for a ticket on Blue Origin. That's for auction. I don't know what the actual price tag is to fly up in space, but yeah.
Are they just like exiting the stratosphere and then coming back?
Yeah, they're going the edge of space, which is about 66 miles above the planet.
Yeah,
that's like the borderline of like outer space or reaching space.
Right, when you just exit the stratosphere.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty interesting. So I'd rather fly in that Blue Origin rather than like the lame ass like Virgin Galactic thing. You're just going on a plane. I want to go on a fucking rocket, bro.
I mean, I don't really get It seems a little excessive to just. I mean, like, what are you doing up there? You're just kind of sitting,
Floating
hanging.
around. You're in space. You're an amateur astronaut.
Well, you're an astronaut. You go, and if an astronaut is just somebody that goes into space, then you
Yeah,
would be an astronaut.
that's you, man.
Unless you assume that it's a descriptor of one's profession,
Yeah,
which I
that's
guess
like
is
when
fair.
you're on like a NASA flight, like doing scientific stuff or actually transporting other astronauts, then you're like, that's your profession. You're an astronaut.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or a cosmonaut if you're Russian.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's cool.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't think that he'd be healthy
like
enough.
if something happens to William Shatner during that flight, it's like the kaputs for the fucking like privatized space travel.
Yeah. Well, I
I'm
mean,
surprised he actually like was like, yeah, I'll do it. Makes sense. It's like
why
he's
not?
90 years old. Like, well, what am I gonna do?
He's got to boldly go, bro.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
got to boldly go.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. And what else is he doing? You know?
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, I don't think he writes books anymore, does he?
I don't know.
And he's not on any TV shows.
He has a TV show.
Does he?
It's like Unexplained or something like that. Apparently, he has a show.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I know he was on that shit my dad says. Remember when they thought that?
Oh my god!
Remember when they thought that could be a show? Like
Yeah.
they could take an internet meme and like turn it into a show.
Actually, the first one that I remember was the Geico Caveman show.
Oh yeah,
remember that shit?
Yeah, for like 10 seconds.
Yeah,
didn't it run for like 3 or 4 episodes?
Something like that. I was like, who thought this is anything's gonna happen? Like, I don't remember anybody saying like, yeah, that's gonna be a dope show.
Yeah,
like what the fuck?
Those Budweiser frogs are getting their own show.
Yeah, it's like if the Geico Gecko had like the Adventures of Geico the Gecko.
Yeah, it's but it's still happening though. I just saw that Strange Planet is getting its own show.
Yeah.
And Poorly Drawn Lines has a show on FX now.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched the Poorly Drawn Lines show yet, and the Strange Planet one's not out yet. But I like both of those comics, but I just don't know that they'll transfer well to a format of like a TV show. But then again, I thought that about Boondocks. Boondocks way better TV show, way better than the comics ever were.
Yeah, there's a little bit of confidence when it comes to like having Dan Harmon as the showrunner for that show. So it's.
Oh, you mean Strange Planet?
Oh, Strange Planet. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who's doing the Poorly Drawn Lines one.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But I know that both Nathan Pyle or Peely or whatever his name is, and whoever draws the comic are like actually intimately involved with the shows. So that bodes well. Like if you're not just buying it from them, and like you actually want the creator to be involved in like making the show good.
Still Garfield, but
yeah, Garfield and Friends.
Yeah.
The Garfield and Friends TV cartoon is actually better than the Garfield comics by a long shot.
Yeah, I have fond memories of the TV show.
It's because there's actually very little Garfield in that show. It's mostly the and Friends.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but the cartoon is fine. It doesn't. It was no Eek the Cat, but I like Eek the Cat a lot.
Yeah, I've gotten that sense.
Yeah. It's good. Eek the Cat is a good show. But yeah, I was in that same era as like Tiny Toons and Animaniacs, and I think it just kind of got washed out by those shows because those shows are the Batman animated cartoon.
Oh yeah,
or animated series.
Yeah, like the early '90s was a pretty good year for like cartoons, even though like the animation wasn't as good as like the golden years of like Warner Brothers stuff and
Tom and Jerry,
Disney.
bro.
Yeah, that stuff was like was pretty good, like well animated. Yeah, but I think the worst of the worst is still Hanna-Barbera. They have like the worst track record of, but they did make a lot of stuff through that Cartoon Network thing, so I can't really say that's all bad.
Yeah. Well, it depends on whether you're talking about the classic Hanna-Barbera or then like, because it started out like fairly decent with fairly decent animation, and then it just kind of like got cheaper and worse along the way.
Because a ton of like IP stuff came out of like Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah,
but they're just bad. So I don't know. but we're coming around to like really good animated stuff. I'm not really too big of a fan of like all that DC animated things. I'm like, whatever. I'm not
Yeah.
because I'm not into those DC comics in general. So when I see like the material coming out, I'm like, I have no idea what
I
this
can't even
is.
remember the last time I read a fucking comic book, dude, let alone a new comic book.
Hmm.
Like, I've gone back to read things that I've read before, or titles that I've read before, or whatever, but I haven't read like a new comic in like a million years.
Hmm.
And I don't anticipate that trend to stop
Yeah,
anytime
the
soon.
last time I picked up anything was like when the new 52 came about.
Hmm.
When they just like trashed all the fucking shit from DC and just made the new 52.
Hmm.
So after that, I was like, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not into it. It's got some of the same problems that Hollywood has, which is it seems like the woke sickness has got it, and I never know when to, like if Frank Miller still made comics and shit, like Frank Miller and Alan Moore, and if those guys were still like, okay, I would probably still read their shit, and maybe they do still put out stuff. I just haven't heard anything about it, and I would venture to guess that those guys probably would see the general state of affairs and decide they're probably just not gonna do that, uh, because okay, that's not a thing that I want to do. So yeah, I don't. Even when we went to the Comic Con, I don't remember getting anything that I hadn't already read before.
Uh,
So,
moving on. What you been watching?
well, I watched the Sopranos movie last night. I also am keeping up on What We Do in the Shadows. That show is still trucking along.
Okay, yeah, I still need to catch up, but yeah, it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Pretty good. The third season is developing nicely
Yeah,
to the point where it's like you kind of worry, just like with Cobra Kai, when is that coming back? I'm very, very trepidatious about the newest season of Cobra Kai because
it's coming pretty soon.
yeah,
Like maybe towards the end of the year, I think.
I know, and
Yeah,
I'm like super skeptical because like last season was so fucking
yeah,
good, and I was like, they can't keep this up. I don't think they can keep it up.
yeah. It's
But
good.
but maybe with a comedy, it's a little bit easier.
Hmm.
The thing I love about What We Do in the Shadows is that it doesn't go for like the big joke.
Hmm.
It really does kind of influence or like emphasize kind of more low key jokes. So I can see the shows like being funnier upon rewatching them.
Hmm.
The more you watch them, the funnier they get. And they really commit to like trying to develop the characters and some sense of their personality, as well as, and they haven't got too big about broadening the scope of the world.
Hmm.
This is usually problems with anything like vampires or anything where it's like it needs to exist in a broader world, and they just try to like contextualize that world too much. Alien is a
Yeah.
good example of this shit. Like, it try to contextualize the world too much, and it's like I don't know how germane any of that is.
Hmm.
So they're not pulling out that scope of the world too fast, but they're not like just keeping it where it is so that it raises
Yeah, that was my
questions.
big worry with the end of season 2, like Gizmo.
Yeah.
It's like they're broadening it out too much. I was like, I don't know if I want this.
Hmm.
So yeah.
But I think it's like they're doing it at a good pace, and they're allowing the characters to develop, and I think that it almost seems like they have, okay, like how many seasons can we do of this, and it kind of seems like they've actually thought at least the first few seasons out in advance.
Hmm.
And I think that's the way to do it, is to plot them out and then see where you can go from there, and if not, go somewhere like, Westworld's supposed to be 5 seasons, and it's just like that's what we're gonna do, and this is the plot for the 5 seasons. When is that supposed to come out
I
again?
don't even know. I haven't heard any news.
Neither have I.
So
um but no, so I was keeping up on that. I don't think I've been getting through getting down to the terminus. I think we're almost done with like halfway through season 7. So another season and a half or so. Season 9, well, 2.5, I guess. So we're getting through a good chunk of that. The show's really good. Doesn't get a lot of love. Got a lot of love when it was on the air, and then people just kind of forgot about it. It's kind of like The Simpsons. They got a lot of love, and then it just kind of stuck around for a while.
hmm.
People were like, "Oh yeah, I mean, it's still good."
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, we're just on to bigger and better things. Like, but yeah. But no, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go through all the way up through season 15 because it does die a slow death
Uh-huh.
from what I could tell. So should have ended it after like the 10th season, but they didn't. I'm gonna stop after 9.
Mm.
I think that'll be good.
Cool. Let's see.
You want to talk about getting a little bit of the gabagool?
Gabagool. talking about that, our genesis of the show from the beginning, Sopranos talk.
Yeah.
Now they made a prequel to the series, and initial thoughts.
I did not like it.
Oh wow, I had nothing at all.
Not even a little bit.
Wow.
There are things to like about it,
Hmm.
but overall, I thought it was very poorly made.
Yeah, my thought is like they just made a really long pilot for something, right?
The plot does not seem cohesive at all.
It's of two minds almost. Like you get Dickie's thing in the beginning, and then it kind of bleeds into like what Tony's about to be.
But they don't flesh any of that shit
No,
out.
it doesn't get fleshed out at
There's
all.
not a cohesive plot. And moreover, it was like, oh, it takes place in the 1960s. Oh, I guess it's just gonna have to have something to do with the fucking civil rights movement and all this shoehorn. Like if
They did mention that in the show about the riots, New York riots.
right, but it's not a backdrop. They have to introduce some plot of like some guy. It's like if they had taken that all the way out and just had the riots be a backdrop, and there wasn't this narrative of this black guy and the affair that he has with the old lady and like all this shit, I felt like they could have cobbled together something. But it's like, yeah, they just have too many balls in the air. It's like too many things going on, and they don't resolve any of them. It's almost, and the end of the movie just feels like they're like, that's about 2 hours, like movie over.
Yeah, I was gonna. We'll get to the ending, but yeah, yeah, it was for me like there's a lot of holes in my knowledge of Sopranos. So like, oh, I remember this character, I know this character, but some of the inside stuff, I'm like, I don't know if that's supposed to be.
No, actually, most of the stuff that's in there, the winks to the audience, which feel very gratuitous, you're already aware of. At least you should be. Wait, maybe not the like when he shoots through her hair.
I heard that story.
Yeah, they okay. I'm not sure when that occurs,
Yeah.
but like he talks about that, and that just seems like it's in there just for a wink to the audience. They cut to the scene and they're in a car and you have no context of what's happening and she's being annoying and then he shoots through and then they cut and that's it.
Mhm.
It's like you just put that in there so we could see this story and how it played out, especially, and it is a kind of a cool commentary because it's like a holy shit, what the fuck, but it's not something that's been brewing, but when it's characterized later, it's almost in a humorous way.
Mhm.
And so it's like, but yeah, there's just really no cohesion. Those things are just kind of thrown in there as like winks to the audience. They don't really seem to serve any purpose. And then there's just like, yeah, there's like this whole like side plot of like the up and coming black guy and like,
Yeah, so that guy's never in the series.
not to my knowledge.
Okay, because I was like, is this someone important?
No, it's just they have to have that now. That's like the fucking rubric. It's that my general attitude is they just don't seem to take any of the characters that are Sopranos characters very seriously. They just kind of Paulie and Syl are good examples. It's like those characters do have like funny ticks, and I do think that the actors that played them do a good job of capturing them, but they almost make them cartoonish in a way that's like not really giving them the respect they deserve, like the respect of like being treated like serious characters. Whereas like young Anthony's character, young Tony Soprano, he is given that. And like, Dickie's character doesn't really, it's like, oh, like, so we just want to there's too much emphasis on like the casual racism and misogyny that's embedded. That seems more like a linchpin of the movie than it really should be, considering it's not germane to the plot very much. Like, what the fuck does his old lady have to do with anything? Like, why are we getting this, like, she wants to be like a strong independent woman and like her old man doesn't support her and this black guy like claims that he will, and then she has an affair with him, and then he just like he freaks out and he fucking like he murders her and he murders his dad over her. It's like, really, man, it's just a little too close to like this undercurrent of like toxic masculinity that doesn't seem to fucking jibe with his character. Like, it doesn't seem to jibe with the whole structure and cohesion of the plot in any way that's meaningful. And there are some things to like about it. I think some of the actor that plays Tony's dad, I think does a good job, like you mentioned, with this, like his mannerisms, and you see like where Tony gets them, and same thing with the guy that plays Junior. I prefer the guy in the original, and for both actors actually, I think do a better job, but they're a little better. Those two characters to me are the only ones that don't feel cartoonish. The other ones in the original Sopranos feel a little more cartoonish than they do, and they're better.
Mhm.
Um, there was some things to like about it. I feel like, it's shot pretty well, but the pacing is kind of all over the place.
Mhm. Yeah.
What's happening? It's like you're getting down to the end of the movie. I'm like, I feel like none of these plot threads are gonna culminate, and I'm like, there's 20 minutes left. Like, they're not gonna tie all this up. Are they planning another movie? Because I don't. I feel like a movie should be a self-contained thing in its own right, but it just feels like you said, a double long pilot or something, and
Mhm.
it's not. But one of the more interesting things I did think came out of it is that you remember that Tony tells Christopher that some cop killed his dad,
Yeah.
right? And there's this whole like ambiguity about what happened, but we learned that actually Junior has him killed.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I would have liked more of that, because you get the impression like in the
It just shows you how petty Junior is.
right, because Dickie is getting all this accolades and attention and emphasis and focus. I would have liked more of that, like resentment breeding and building culmination of this thing, but it seems like it's something that's done super capriciously. Same thing with like him killing his dad or him killing his old lady. It's like these things are like I get like how the latter two would be something that is done capriciously, because that does happen in the show, like where characters have like a temper and then they kind of like something happens and then you end up
Yeah.
like fucking whacking a character or
Yeah.
whatever.
What's his name? That beat the stripper to death.
Yeah,
Uh, Joey
Ralph,
Pants.
Ralphie.
Ralphie.
Yeah,
So I think for me, like, I didn't really have a problem like how much of a fucking loose cannon Dickie was, because like it kind of just shows you what type of person he is. Very much like kind of the opposite of Tony, because like Tony picked up a lot of stuff from Dickie, but he still wasn't a man of like he would try to shy away from violence for a lot of the time.
yeah,
Like try to work his way, use his mind in a way to just smooth it over or do something else. Where Dickie just rage.
yeah,
He just rages out.
yeah. That's what I mean. Is that I don't, and they're if they had focused more on Junior's resentment and his and Dickie's personality and this kind of like hero worship that goes into him as it like transcends onto the next generation in particular, that could have been somewhat insightful and good. The decision to have Christopher Moltisanti narrate seemed like useless. I didn't really see the purpose
I didn't either.
of any of it.
Yeah.
I do think that they do some clever stuff where they do like some mirroring of things that do happen in the series. Like if you notice Dickie's attitude toward his wife wanting to be independent of him and her attitude toward him behaving that way mirrors Christopher and Adrian's whole row with the fucking club.
Mhm.
It's almost tit for tat the same thing.
Mm.
He makes his promise, he's going to marry her, but he really wants her to stay like under his thumb in some way, makes her a promise, she gets fed up, starts getting frustrated, senses some tension, then he becomes her business partner in some way to like give her this sense that she has autonomy when really she is still very dependent on him.
Mhm.
That plays out. I thought that was a clever way to kind of mirror those things. You see where he gets this kind of sensibility and stuff, but
Did you find it interesting? Like the main takeaway from me, not the main takeaway, but a big takeaway that I took. Okay, they didn't make classes, but the actress that played Tony's mother, it's very the way that it was done. It was it mirrored how Carmela acted and
mhm,
why Tony likes Carmela.
mhm.
It's very much the same thing.
Yeah, I definitely got some of that. And then they do again, I think they would have fleshed out better like at this juncture in the plot. Livia is at a crucial stage of like going off the ledge into her pathology that we know it
Mhm.
as. And they act like, they make it out like, kind of Dickie is the kind of linchpin and the bridge to that, and Tony is concerned. Um, so that's interesting, but again, they just didn't flesh any of that out enough. Same thing with, I would have liked more of the dynamic between, like, Tony makes it out like Junior and him were close when he was young. And other than two lines that harken back to the show, let's go play catch,
It's raining.
and it's raining, and he never had the makings of a varsity athlete,
Yeah.
they just seem thrown in there.
Yeah.
We don't really get any context around them other than just like it's a thread back to the series, and then we're supposed to kind of. Tony heavily implies that his and Junior's relationship is of a certain stripe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those comments are a thread back to that. And when you get that little thread, you want to like unravel the context a little more, but we get no context.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like, because they're trying to have Tony have this wild spirit where he's figuring out who he is, a relationship with Dickie, a relationship with Junior, and a relationship with his mother and his father.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do all that in fucking 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It like, you need to pick and select some things.
Yeah.
And when you also have this completely superfluous side plot of like Dickie's dad and his old lady, and then that becomes Dickie's guma. And then like, what about Dickie's wife? We get no sense of the relationship between Dickie and his wife at all.
Yeah.
And so you have that, and then you have this whole shoehorned, like, this black gang of, guys coming up, and they're like, beefing with the mafia, trying to do their own thing. That plot line just seemed really shoehorned in, and to me was disappointing because the guy that plays the main black guy, I think he did a good job. I think he's a good actor. He does a really good job. And so, and the whole dynamics of those scenes and everything, like, they were good. They just didn't belong in that film. They could have made a whole movie about that, about like the black guys trying to like get away from like being under the thumb of the Italian mob, and like hashing their whole thing out, and the music that he listens to on the radio, and this whole undercurrent of that culture, and has how it pervades into the old guard mafia guys. You get a little bit of it with Ray Liotta's second character.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked his character too, the guy in prison, and he even has some of that, and like, he's like,
he's the therapist,
right? Exactly that dynamic between him and Dickie is very like similar.
It's because he would lie to him,
mm-hmm.
and like the fantasy of like, I'm trying to do good. I teach like blind kids how to play baseball. He never fucking did that, but he fantasized about that shit.
Exactly.
So,
but you get some of the other like remnants of the backdrop of, black culture, because he wants
jazz records.
Yeah, he wants
Miles
jazz
Davis.
records, and then he brings him some other jazz records. He's like, this isn't jazz.
Yeah.
Get this away from me.
Yeah.
But another harkening back to the original series that I thought was good is that when Tony is talking to that counselor, her response and her dialogue and her demeanor feels very much like Melfi.
Yes.
Like when he's talking to her. And I thought that was very, very well done, because it doesn't beat you over the head, but it's like, you see why he likes Melfi's tact, because the first person that probably likely listened to him and cared about him and was sympathetic to the problems he was having with his mother is this counselor. And the counselor even kind of like tries to help the mother, and to no avail. Pull at that thread a little bit more. That would have made good, interesting stuff. But it just feels like it's just all over the place, and couldn't really decide what sort of movie it wanted to be, where it wanted to focus. I would have loved the whole movie just to have been about the black guys and about all their shit and all of that. Like,
that was definitely interesting.
Yeah.
But it took so much away from that to the main threads of that movie. They were interesting, but it's like you just showed us something that it really doesn't pan out.
It feel like they wanted to make a movie about that because it's like, oh, it's in the civil rights era, and it's about black people, and that's very in vogue now. And it's like, okay, I don't care if it's like, if it's well done. Like, I would have loved to have watched the entire movie about that shit. And then it seems like the characters that I did, like, they're hand waved away. It's like, oh, like, Paulie and Syl are just fucking cartoonish. Like,
well, I take it in a way where they're not the main players during that era. So that's why they're kind of considered, they're side characters. That's what they really are, because they're not funneled in, they're not at the hierarchy of that system. So they're just, soldiers. So they're kind of treated as such in the original series, where you have side characters who do stuff, and they're just cartoons, right? So it's just kind of a cycle of what happens in my eyes.
Sure, but if you wanted to emphasize that, okay, there's this theme where it's like,
They were there,
th-
but they're not important to the story.
right, but they do become important to the story later, and unless you wanted to make some sort of point about how chucklehead fucking soldier guys end up in positions of power like Syl and Paulie do, not because they're good, but just because they put their time in or whatever, you could have developed that thread in a way that was meaningful to me. Instead, it feels like you're actually trying to knock Paulie and Syl down a couple of pegs by making them what is tantamount to the brunt of a fucking joke. And it's like
Well, I
they're
think so. They did a really good job with Syl because he has Dickie's ear, and he listens to them.
yeah, I did like that. That did seem very okay. That is like
It's like the young, like the early on in the movie, his hair is just fucking terrible.
well, again, that's another thing. They show you that his hair is apparently supposed to be a toupee.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so that also makes it unclear to me, like, how much older than Tony is he?
Yeah, that's the problem. What I was telling you this when I saw the movie, I was like, how old are they? What's the age difference?
Because you
Because
don't,
it seems like it's like a 20, 30-year difference.
yeah, because Syl seems like he's like there. He's like basically in his 40s,
Yeah,
like late 30s, early 40s. Like Paulie is,
older.
older than both Syl but it's like Paulie and Syl are like the same age, and they both seem like they're like 10 to 15 years older than Tony. And I don't really like Syl is like they make it known in the context of the series. Ralph makes it known that Syl and Tony came up together.
Hmm.
Syl, Tony, and Paulie came up together, which kind of implied that they were all soldiers at the same time, and that maybe Tony was a little bit younger than them, but still peers. But like, you don't get that impression from the movie because Syl treats Tony like a kid,
Yeah.
and so it's just like it's confusing, and it doesn't jibe with the overall like
Mhm.
narrative of the film. And like again, that scene with the where he shoots her in the hair in the car seems so fucking shoehorned in there. It's like
Yeah, I saw some other reviews. They did a really interesting take on it, where a lot of the scenes were not a one for one of what they said in the series, because they kind of wave it away as in, memory is kind of faulty,
mhm.
and even the narrators, they might be unreliable narrators, but that's the truth that they know.
Yeah.
So I kind of take it in a way where these are just kind of throughout the years, you just kind of build these stories up in your mind, and it becomes way bigger than what it actually happened.
Yeah.
So when you actually see it, like quote unquote in real life, them replaying it to the way it's supposed to be done,
Right, like the scenes with that are we see in the original series that Tony has memories
yeah,
of
those
from
are
when
just
he's a
memories.
kid.
Yeah,
And so we see kind of from a third party perspective what plays out and how it plays out. But again, we don't really that scene, it would have been more interesting, like the few scenes that they give that Tony remembers, if we actually got to see them play out and be able to like acknowledge the discrepancies between his memory and the actuality of it versus just getting a glimpse of it for a moment and going like, oh, that's a scene where like, he follows them and then
yeah.
his dad gets arrested and then it's just like cut. We don't actually get any more insight or details in any meaningful way. So and it just seems thrown in there like, oh, this
You
is
remember?
remember that,
Uh-huh.
and it's just like, yeah, there's just not a lot of because they're trying to like integrate like Janice's character, you get basically nothing from her, like how whatever, like she's just kind of there taking up space as Janice, where she really has no autonomy in the series, and it's like you have this big cast of characters and you're trying to provide some context for them. Now, Christopher's not even in there. A lot of the characters aren't even in there, but there's still enough. There's Janice and Carmela, and there's Tony, and then you're introducing Dickie and like his dad. So those are new characters. Then you have to introduce his wife and like the black guy that's the ringleader, and then his little cohort, and then you're just like introducing too much that is like extraneous if the goal of the movie is to show us how give us some context to Tony Soprano and the other mob guys, and also the kind of legacy of Dickie and how that influenced the current state of affairs by the time we pick up the series in the late 90s. I don't really get any of that. It just feels like it's just constantly shifting gears and moving from side to side, and it doesn't really do anything for me. I just like, it was fine, but it felt like you said, like there were like 3 movies going on, neither of which came to a resolution, neither of which really like shed any light or context on any of the events of the series.
So what were your feelings on the final scene? Was it like, oh, fucking just shoehorned that shit in? Like
Yeah,
too much
kind of.
fanfare?
I don't know if it was like too much fanfare. I mean, I think you have to have a little bit of that.
Pinky up.
Yeah. Got some gabagool. Yeah. Well,
Apparently a lot of people love that fucking last scene. I'm like, all right, I guess.
You're talking about when he's at the funeral?
Mhm.
Because technically the last scene is Tony waiting, isn't it? In the whatever. Or no, I guess that is the final scene.
Mhm.
I transposed them in my head because he's waiting there for Dickie, and then he goes to the funeral after that.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, it didn't feel out of step with the rest of the stuff. You know, we just have an expectation that things are going to end on a bang, and that's, and
yeah,
especially
funny little things are like they find the pills in his pockets, like,
Yeah.
oh, he must have been depressed and all that stuff, and whatever.
Yeah,
It's
and
like a typical Sopranos thing.
Yeah, and you get that little line from Livia that you get the impression that perception or whatever like pushes her farther from ever really getting any semblance of help because, you know, he's weak and he dies and all this, and
They went to a lot of funerals back then.
Yeah.
There's like at least what 3, 4. Okay, when Dickie's dad dies, when Joey Diaz dies, when Dickie dies, and there's another one in there, I think.
Yeah, fucking Joey Diaz. Come on, that's a fucking. How you gonna take out Joey Diaz like that?
You fucking cocksucker! You never talk about her. That's my girl. And punches in the face and gets head blown off.
Yeah. That just seems like, seriously, that's how you're gonna fucking have that character go out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It would have been funny if that was like Pussy's dad or something like that.
Yeah.
Would have made sense. Well,
I'm not clear about who he is supposed to be.
Yeah. Apparently his character's name's Panda. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
again, and Pussy's in the fucking show.
Yeah.
The movie.
Yeah.
But he doesn't fucking really do anything.
No.
He's just kind of there to be like, see that character? That's Pussy.
It's not what you think it is.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, oh, okay, so he's there, but what is he doing?
And I do kind of like it that he's a lot younger than any of the other guys, it seems like.
Yeah, but it seems like he's supposed to be like, he's basically like a little old, like a year or two older than Tony, but like a few years younger than Syl and like 10 or 12 years younger than Paulie. Because when we pick up the series, he's still a soldier, and you get the impression that he has been that for a while at that point. But yeah, I don't know. It was like, yeah, I didn't like the way they killed off his guy. But yeah, there's a lot of people that get, and I think that another thing they do that I think is good is that because of how routine funerals are, and you get this in the series too, everybody's kind of
like over it,
blasé attitude, and they're like watching television, and he freaks out, and
yeah, I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, and again, like there's some cool little breadcrumbs, like Ray Liotta's character says to Dickie, what kind of god, and this is like a thing in the funerals. Like Tony picks that adage up, who you assume he picks it up from Dickie, who picks it up from this guy. It's like every time someone dies, what kind of god?
Yeah,
who's so young. Like, you get both of those lines.
And I like the whole like thing where Junior breaks his back. He can't bang anymore, so he gets really good at eating out chicks.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Goddamn Dickie, your sister's cunt. Like, yeah, he like see stuff like that. Like they did. It is clear that that actor committed to like delivering that line the way Junior delivers it, or like Tony's dad has a few lines that he delivers very much like Tony, or the like thing in the fucking car, like he
Yeah.
punches the roof of the car,
Uh-huh.
and so it's like they committed to picking up those mannerisms, and
Also, like, young Tony, like the whole like kind of like rounded out shoulders,
uh-huh,
kind of like very unassuming.
yeah, kind of sheepish.
Yeah.
Yeah, he but then it's like, yeah, I don't, yeah, who didn't beat up the, Mr. Tasty guy, whatever. And then it's like, oh, we're gonna get some of the conflict about like how to deal with Tony, and it's like they're trying to keep him at a distance and give him the straight and narrow, but he doesn't, everybody behind, like they act like we don't want him involved in this world.
Hmm.
He's smart and he's good, but then it's like, well, what is he doing, and who is really trying to be a role model to him? Because everybody has this attitude like, he's not going to go pro, he's not any good at football really,
Yeah.
and this is a thing that like Tony carries with him. It's why it's so heartbreaking to him. They don't ever explicitly say it. He blames Junior. He used to tell the girl cousins that I didn't have the makings of a varsity athlete, and that's an encapsulation of the fact that like Tony kind of feels like he really didn't have any choice but to do what he did.
Yeah.
And no one really encouraged him, and no one really like, he never had any of the nurturing to be anything other than what he became.
Hmm.
And he's probably a little resentful of that. And it's encapsulated by Junior saying that he, clandestinely, but he obviously picked up on that, and then he's acting out in a way. And they say like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you got to get your grades up, but then behind the scenes too, they're like, that's like what kids do, it's just boys will be boys or
Yep.
whatever. And it's like, okay, so you get that. Again, I would have liked more development of that, but I don't know. I give it like a C minus.
Okay.
Like, I'm not bummed I watched it, but I don't feel like it
Adds to the lore of The Sopranos.
doesn't even feel like a fucking Sopranos movie, really, except all these little like,
Uh-huh.
that's pussy over there. Hey,
Uh-huh.
look, he sees this. Paulie does this. He goes, hey, gabagool, like whatever.
Eating sandwiches,
Yeah,
getting beat the fuck up.
yeah. Nobody says gabagool, actually.
No, no one does.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was, seeing those old like old staples of the old hangouts. The Bing's not there, but
Yeah.
the meat shop's there.
Yeah, pork store.
Yeah.
Satriali's.
Yeah. So it's,
Yeah, but they're like really not ever there. You see like the exterior of it a couple of times,
Mhm.
but then it's like,
because there's another place that they go to, but yeah. But times change, locations change. So
sure.
it's one of those things.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
This
it's
will
very
probably be the
strange that they had like Christopher like narrating the story. That really didn't make any sense to me.
yeah.
And
Me
it was
neither.
like, I guess he's like beat in the beyond, so he has like access to all the old memories, which doesn't make any sense. It would have been better if it was like Dickie was the guy doing the narration, right?
Yeah, it's like if you're gonna get that, yeah. I didn't care for that choice, especially because it seems to be it's just like all the time in a fucking movie with narration, beginning and end, and then maybe you get 2, 3 lines in the middle. It's like, but by the time it comes back to him narrating, you're like, oh right, I forgot he was narrating this movie. It's like in fucking Gremlins, he does that. There's narration in
Oh yeah,
Gremlins.
yeah.
It's like, it seems useless.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I didn't like it. I won't probably just
I was
pretend it
trying to
doesn't
remember like
exist.
the whole like the '60s, like them put a man on the moon. Did Christopher say the wrong name? Did he say Neil Diamond? I don't remember. Did he say it right? Did he fuck it up?
Maybe he does. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't remember. He does say something about Neil Young.
There we go. Neil Young instead of Neil Armstrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, which doesn't seem to jive with the notion. It's like that's a thing that they do in the series where the characters are constantly like saying the wrong people, saying the wrong places, saying the wrong idioms.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, but now we're supposed to believe that he is like some sort of disembodied spirit that has all this information about
Mhm.
everything. So why is he messing that up? It
I don't know.
seems kind of stupid.
Mhm.
It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I don't know. That decision was like, again, it just seemed like a decision for like, oh, it's Christopher Moltisanti, like but I don't think it adds anything to the plot, and if anything, kind of distracts and makes it odd,
Mhm.
especially as a choice.
And plus too, it makes kind of like the actual series like the characters in there are a little bit more like fumbling. They're not as slick and cool as the guys before them.
Yeah,
right? They're just kind of all pudgy, fat Italian dudes.
that's what I mean. Is like it almost seems like the characters are set up to be like a joke in some way. They're not taken seriously, and like this is a problem that I had with
Wasn't that like the whole like I heard like the show creator before they even casted Gandolfini, it was trying to be like kind of model it after like the Simpsons mob guys. It's like supposed to be really cartoonish. Then they found Gandolfini. It's like this dude could like elevate the series, so we'll just write around him. So
yeah, I thought he did probably the best job of everybody that was among the supposed to be like Sopranos characters.
mhm.
But again,
No. I mean like the original series when it first started.
oh,
The
oh,
plan was to have like a very comical take on the mob,
oh, that might be
and
true.
then when Gandolfini came on board,
More
they're like,
like analyze this or whatever.
yeah, and then they're like, okay, we got a real actor here that's willing to do the work, so we'll write around him.
Maybe, I don't know, depending on who, because I think that a lot of the original actors like actually seem to take the roles pretty seriously and seem to be pretty serious actors. Um, but yeah, I'm not really sure if that was the intent. Maybe. I mean, but yeah, I thought his son did a fine job, even though he's not really an actor.
Yeah.
But I don't know, whatever. Like I said, I didn't have my hopes too high, so it's like,
Mhm.
you know, usually they go back to stuff like that, the things that I like, and they just go back and they're like, oh, I want to do this, and it's like, yeah, I wish it wouldn't, as a general rule.
All right. What else? Memoirs of a Melancholy Whore.
Melancholy
Wait,
Horrors.
what is that?
That's a Gabriel Marquez book that I finished and started another book after that. But
Oh,
no,
this is the one that you guys were suggesting.
yeah, it's a
This one?
really good book.
Okay, and it's a short read. You said, right?
Yeah, 120 pages.
Okay, I'll probably pick that up.
And well, you can borrow my copy if you want. I got it.
Oh, you have a hard copy.
Yep.
Nice.
That's yeah. I don't really do digital copies of books anymore. I don't know why. I don't get through them as fast. I don't like them as much. I don't. But no, really solid book that sounds like I think I described the premise of the book to you before, and it sounds kind of like odd and creepy, uh, but it's very thoughtful and insightful, and it's about this old dude who decides that for his 90th birthday, he's going to treat himself to a night with an adolescent prostitute, and then he basically doesn't ever end up having the sex with her because she becomes emblematic of all of these like missed opportunities in his life to like connect with women and have some sort of like meaningful relationship with them. So it's kind of a meditation on like old age and missed opportunities and what it means to be close to somebody and how there's really no substitute for kind of living in the moment and taking advantage of opportunities when you have them. Um, it's really substantive for a book that's so short and not lascivious and whatever. Seems to take place in some sort of, I don't know, weird world. But yeah, it's like um, very thoughtful and very well done. And I'm glad I read it, especially because it took me a lot longer. Like I breezed through like the first 85 pages of it in like 2 days, and then I just kind of sat on the last end of it. I do that when I like a book, kind of like sits with me, and I kind of like chew on it before I actually like finish it. I get through like this new book that I read, the David Foster Wallace Last Interview. It's kind of like switch gear to like a nonfiction thing. Kind of wanted some insights into Dave Foster Wallace because my old lady was reading Infinite Jest, which she finally finished. And so I was like, oh yeah, like I'll pick this up. I had the Last Interview with Christopher Hitchens that she got me a couple Christmases ago, and I enjoyed it. And I just ground through I don't know, like 160 pages of it in like a day and a half.
Hmm.
That was like a week ago. I've just like been sitting on the rest of it. It's only like a 200-page book or whatever.
Mhm.
So, but that's kind of cool. Like I don't know. The guy has some weird thoughts about things. He's a weird writer. I don't know if you've ever read anything by him, but he's a weird writer because he writes fiction and nonfiction, and they're very distinctly different. And depending on whether you've read
I think I
predominantly,
have one of his the collection of essays he did.
Consider the Lobster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite collection of essays. Uh, Great collection of essays. He also did a supposedly fun thing that I'll never do again, which is another collection of essays that he did. And then he wrote 2 books of short stories, wrote 2 novels, and then didn't finish his 3rd novel before he died. And then they published it, I think, unfinished. I never read it because it just like unfinished works are not really my jam.
Mhm.
I did read Mortality from Hitchens, which is almost better unfinished because it's actually a book about him dying.
Mm.
And so when he died while he was writing it, so that makes it kind of more poignant, I think.
Mhm.
But yeah, these interviews are interesting because it's like some of the themes and stuff that come out in his writing, you get to hear him kind of espouse a little bit more about them and kind of talk a little bit about the nature of fame and media and all this stuff. And he's just like a really weird, quirky dude. So um, that's been interesting. But no, Melancholy's Memories of My Melancholy Horrors is definitely a good recommendation, especially if you've never read anything by Gabriel Marquez. It's a good intro. It was the last book he wrote, but that and Autumn of the Patriarch are probably pretty good intros. They're not his most well-known books, but I've read 4 books by him now, and they're all pretty good.
Dip your toe in.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not like like if you never read David Foster Wallace, I'm not gonna like, oh, you should go read Infinite Jest, right?
No,
It's
no.
fucking.
I just see people carry that book around. I was like, I don't think I have enough time for that.
It is an investment, but
Uh-huh.
I will say it is like a life-changing book. Like if there's
I
such a
got stuff
thing
to do, man.
as a book that changes your life, like but maybe I have this impression of it that's different because I read that book in like 3 days or something.
Jesus Christ. Were you just locked up somewhere?
Pretty much, I just didn't do anything but read for like 10, 11 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like, and I used to read a lot more then, so I read faster,
Hmm.
right? So I read, what? Figured I probably don't read this fast anymore. I used to read about a page a minute, so 60 pages, probably 50 pages in an hour, 50 to 60 pages in an hour. Read for 10 hours a day, you're going to read 600 pages. So do that for back-to-back days and then it bleed into a third day for whatever left you have
Brain
over.
will melt.
Yeah.
You become one with the writer.
Yeah, I had to get some distance from him for a while. I didn't read another book by him until I read Consider the Lobster, like probably 5 or 6 years later. And so, but yeah, that would be the book that I would recommend by him. Would be Consider the Lobster. It's a good intro, especially the first essay in that book is really fucking weird. But yeah, that's an interesting read. I like books of essays because you can kind of just pick up ones that you think are interesting and read through them. My old lady's reading a book of essays by E.B. White that I bought. I think she's now read more of them than I have, but it's good because it's just like when you don't know what to read. I don't know if I want to move on to my next book. Just pick this book up and read a couple essays out of it, and then once I make a decision, I can just kind of leave it there and go back. It's not any continuity in the plot. It's like a book of short stories. So, well, anyway, you read anything new?
I haven't read anything new, but I did watch Dave Chappelle's The Closer.
David Chappelle, the
Yeah.
closer.
Yeah.
I don't have now on Netflix anymore, man. I don't know when you get it.
And I'll probably give you my login. I already have all my other logins, so
Yeah.
I feel like the government here, man, just giving me handouts all the time. Anyway, it's his last, I think the last special up on his contract for Netflix for this current contract, and it's pretty much he gives no fucks.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was kind of interesting because there's like a big hubbub. Is like cancel Dave Chappelle because he said he's fucking transphobic and all this shit. And it's one of those things where it was a Hitch thing, like when he did the whole women aren't funny.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing is like, I should have just wrote an article like women don't listen.
Or can't read.
Or can't read.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing because if you actually watch the special all the way through, he makes it's very poignant of why he made those jokes and then why he wants to move on from that.
Right.
And if you watch the whole special all the way through, then you would understand what he was saying. And people are just like, he's just making jokes. It's just making jokes about the trans community. So just fucking cancel him.
Well, because I feel like most of his jokes kind of rely on the same crux of a joke that Louis made, which is an acknowledgement of the humor and oddity of how strange the trans phenomenon is. I feel like that's the crux of most of his jokes, which is like, you have to acknowledge that if you feel like you're a different gender than what you are, that's a fucking weird thing. It's weird and it's really funny in some ways. And like Louis' bit is like, it's like, I think it's interesting to have that level of insight into what exactly is wrong with you. He's like, I don't have that much self-awareness. It'd be
Or
like
what you want.
right. It's
Really.
like, he's like, if you just woke up one morning and you felt out of sorts and someone was like, oh, you're actually an owl. You just have to start eating birds or eating mice and hooting at night and you'll feel better. He was like, that would be very comforting in some ways.
Yeah.
But you can't like escape the fact that it is an odd thing. It's weird and like odd in a lot of ways that are absurd. And he's just like, I don't think any of the jokes he's ever done have been mean spirited.
Yeah.
Um,
And he
and
made it a point where he made these jokes not to dehumanize these people. It's just like you said, it just wants to express what he finds fun, like the humor in that. And the whole thing of kind of their I don't know how to word this so it doesn't sound like bad, but like their needs are beyond the needs of other people.
yeah,
They're just like a protected class now.
uh-huh.
And if you can't talk about it in any other way, then like it's almost like disrespectful for the people that paved the way for you, like the civil rights movement and all those other things that want to equalize the playing field for a lot of people. But if you're going to put these people down and put them over, and then you're kind of just considered a protected class, is like, what the fuck did we do here?
Yeah,
Like the reason why we have all these things is because we're built on the shoulders of giants. And if you're going to just disregard that, then I don't know what to do with that, right?
right. Because you're just making it a taboo to examine something unless it's to praise it, and that totally undermines any struggle that might have come at that cost. Because what you're supposedly what people are striving for is equality,
Mhm.
and when you put someone on a pedestal, that's not equality.
Yeah.
It's basically saying that they're special or they're whatever. It's the guy that was the founder of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, FIRE organization. He has I watched this like talk with him, and he was talking about that, about the common sentiments on college campuses about like the discourse and speech that are allowed, and how administrators behave in response to that. His thesis, which is one that I wholeheartedly agree with, that does a disservice to the very people that it's supposed to help the most. And the way he phrased it, which I think crystallizes it nicely, is when you have an administration who says that you can't talk about blacks, gays, trans people in a certain way, what they are telling blacks, trans people, gays, whatever, women, what they are telling you is that you cannot handle other people exercising their free right to speech.
Yeah.
You can't deal with that. You're too weak for that. And
Mhm.
when someone tells you you are too weak to deal with liberty or like other people's autonomy, they're turning you into a child. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're infantilizing you. And the fact that these minority groups don't think that that's offensive or obnoxious is absolutely confounding to any rational mind.
Yeah, and Chappelle makes that point too.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen the special, but I would venture to guess that he probably has a similar attitude toward it.
Yeah.
And
And I think yeah, and also too, he caught a lot of guff because he's like, I'm a turf. I was like,
Mhm.
all right, cool, whatever.
it's yeah, good luck canceling that guy. I don't think you can cancel Rogan, Bill Burr, and Chappelle.
No.
And what's funny about this, I was just talking about this, is the irony of the whole cancel culture trying to purge these guys, to cancel them, is what you're doing is you're effectively making them more powerful because now they have become uncancelable. And now what you're saying is you're demonstrating that they can say whatever the fuck they want.
Mhm.
And they're like three of the only guys who really can say that. And so that is so much more powerful. Like when you're talking about something like comedy, that it's like they have a huge competitive advantage over every other comic. Those
Mhm.
three guys, they're
Yeah.
already so much funnier than other. I mean, I don't even think Rogan's comedy is all that like on par with Bill Burr
No, no, no.
or
I wouldn't put
Chappelle.
him in the same stratosphere.
No. And I don't think he would put himself there
No,
either.
no,
Like
no.
when he's like just happy to be adjacent to those
Yeah,
guys and
yeah.
like, hey man, like I do my own thing with a podcast and stuff like that. And he's a much bigger cultural influencer. It's just on the cover of Cigar Aficionado this month actually.
Oh, is he?
And but it's like you're giving them a huge competitive advantage because every time you try to cancel them and it fails, it just makes them go like, I can talk about whatever I want. Meanwhile, like, Jim Jeffries, whoever that is, he's over here like making jokes that are like yuck, yuck, yuck. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, good luck getting people to come to your shows. I can say whatever I want.
Mhm.
It's that court jester like phenomenon, right? Like that's the inverted thought of that. Like, why was there a court jester in like medieval? Like, because the jester is somebody who's beneath contempt, and like there, and so he's really the only one that's
Could
free
say
to
whatever.
he's free to speak the entire truth because nothing he can say to the king will earn his ire because he's beneath contempt. But now you've elevated these guys to such a status that they're really like the only three. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody else in there that I'm like leaving out that um before he died, I would say, Norm Macdonald was kind of in that category.
That
Uh,
guy did not give a fuck.
no, he does not. And that's what made him such a great comic is that he just, and especially because he was the kind of guy that like really just didn't seem, he seemed like his whole purpose in life was just to be funny. He didn't care about fame or success. They kept trying to give the guy stuff. He was like, man, people love you so much. You're so fucking funny. You're a comics comic, right? Like, here, have a talk show. Here, have a sitcom. And he just fuck it up in some way because like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like he's just like, I don't want to do that. I just want to be a funny guy. And like, and they're like, but we're trying to give you some money, like,
I
and
just
give
like
you
doing stand-up.
and give you. And he just didn't seem to ever fucking give a shit. His
Mhm.
attitude was like, I'm not going hungry. I just want to be able to do whatever I want and say whatever I want.
Yeah.
You put me in some sort of constraints where I have to, be responsible for a show and like da 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 da. It's like, I'm not really interested in
Mhm.
that. Just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, circling back around, he was like Chappelle was like, I'm not no longer interested in doing like trans jokes at all. I'm done with it. That's
yeah,
not my thing anymore. And that he left the special like that. I was like, okay, that's good.
yeah.
Uh
And you have no doubt that like, if he decided that, it is legitimately because he is just tired of making those jokes, and not because he's cowing to
uh
any sort of like pressure or like blowback, because he just knows he could go on making those jokes all fucking day if he wanted,
yeah,
and no
he
one
could
would care.
have just not given a fuck,
Yeah,
but yeah, like cuz I'm not going to ruin or spoil anything with that special, but yeah, he had a person that he took under his wing that was a trans person. And I think his that Six and Stone specials came out,
mhm.
and then she defended him. Then the Twitter world kind of just raked her through the coals, and then she ended up like jumping off a building.
Oh, Jesus.
And yeah, just yeah. After that, I was like, yeah, I just don't need to do this anymore. And
Yeah,
it's one of those things where like I recognize these people as humans. They have wants and needs, and have just want to be seen as a person.
right.
And I'm willing. And he said, I'm willing to do that as long as you're not gonna willing to step on me.
Right. I mean, I don't see how it's any different than like he makes fun of black culture and black people all the time. Or he gets a pass because he's black. It's like if you're a comedian, there shouldn't be anything as a sacred cow inherently. You're not dehumanizing people to acknowledge some phenomenon in their culture and to criticize it. If anything, I would think that was like our whole discussion about Asian culture last week. And it's like, I don't say these things because I have like bad opinions of Asian people. If not, it's like the opposite. It's like I want them, I think this is a detrimental thing to them, or to invoke the name of Bill Cosby, which is not very in
Whoa.
vogue, but like he did the same thing. It's like you get the impression that he actually cared about the trajectory of the black community and black culture as a general rule. And so consequently, he was critical of the elements that he thought were detrimental to it. But if you just act like everything is fine and okay, and that, all trans people are heroes, it's like, that narrative is just not helping them, because trans people categorically have some, like, that's a serious problem that they have, like, in society. And there are some very strong interpersonal things that go along with that are not fabrications, right? Their suicide rate, their unemployment rate, their general connection to, like, normies, right? Like anything outside the trans community or whatever. And I can't think that you're doing them a service by creating this artificial thing where they're lauded, where that doesn't really jibe with, like, the reality of their experience. And so not acknowledging it is not going to make it better. And if you really care, as a comedian, what you do is you pick fun and you point out the ironies of these things to draw awareness to it. And the only way that you really can, this is the reason that comedians that don't talk about anything that, of social substance, don't really ever become more than, like, guys that might have a good bit here or there, right? Like, Pablo Francisco or
Uh-huh.
whatever, Carlos Mencia.
Yeah.
They have a few good bits here and there, but it really doesn't do anything. It's like, okay, that's amusing,
Yeah,
but
but
you
that's
just,
like the kind of we're talking about like the three greats within comedy. You only get those the reason why they're the greats. Everybody else is kind of common, yuck people. And
yeah,
that's what comedy is supposed to be, really. You just elevate the art in a way that no one else can.
yeah, but there's a reason that, like, those three guys are probably arguably the three greatest comedians ever, because the path paved by Richard Pryor and George Carlin and Lenny Bruce, like, they did that thing. And so it's like you have those three comedians over 30 years, and now we have three of the best comedians, or, two of, like, let's just say Chappelle and Bill Burr, two of the best comedians ever in the history of comedy, working alongside each other,
Mhm.
like, still in their prime at the same fucking time.
Yeah.
And, like, if you want that trend, if you want comedy to get better, censorship is not going to do anything for that. It
Mhm.
will kill comedy, and it is killing comedy. It's killing television, it's killing anything that you might, like, perceive to be funny, because you're just creating this culture of, like, shut the fuck up and, like, talk about things in a very serious way, even things that are, like, weird and ironic. And it's like, so then where does that leave you to, like, say things that are, like, funny? It's like, these two guys are fucking bulletproof, and all you're doing is just making sure that you're not allowing them to influence other comics. And
Yeah, it's kind of funny with the whole thing with talking about Bill Burr when he was like at the Grammys and he was like doing something for like the category for like Latin music, and he just made fun of his like, yeah, just me, a fucking cisgendered redhead
yeah,
talking about like Latin music.
yeah,
It's
it's like,
and
yeah,
people are like fucking cancel him. It's like, why?
yeah,
What did he do?
yeah,
He just
yeah,
made a joke of like something really obvious. Like, isn't this awkward?
yeah,
You're having me, Bill Burr, a guy from Boston with red hair.
yeah. And he constantly points that shit out. And it's like, and it's funny because, with the exception of, there is a lot of black comedians, some of them kind of funny of varying degrees. None of them hit the mark that Chappelle does. And if you were to say, like, who are the two comedians that actually have some really strong insights into race relations, like, it's funny that, like, it's ironic that Bill Burr is, like, one of those, because his insights into race relations are second maybe only to Chappelle's. And, like, and I get the impression that that is precisely because he has friends and an old lady of a variety of different racial and ethnic backgrounds, because he's a working comedian. And it used to be that, like, that was the banner under which comedians bonded. Like they
Mhm.
didn't care if you were a black guy or a gay guy or
If
whatever.
you're funny, you're funny.
Right, yeah. And it's you're a comedian, right? We're all comedians, whether it's, Mario Cantone is a good example of that. He's a funny fucking guy. He's fucking gay as hell. And I'm sure most comedians aren't gay, but he doesn't run just like in the gay comedian circles. It's too small of a group. He just has an attitude like we're all comedians. And he was on Chappelle's show, and it's like,
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, he's
Because I
like
can picture the face, but I was like, where was he in though? And then
he was
yeah,
in like Sex and the City and
yeah, yeah,
stuff too.
yeah.
And
But he has like a very distinct voice, a very
yeah,
distinct mannerism.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, but he's buddies with Chappelle, and Chappelle's, not gay, and he's not like a white Italian guy either, but like they're buddies, or at least good enough friends to like for him to put him on a show or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like, because yeah, they're comedians, and it's like, well, they're talented people of different walks than I am, and they have different things to contribute to the general catalog of humor, and that's how exposure to people like that is how you refine things and like, sharpen the general catalog of comedy that's out there, instead of being like, oh, well, you can't talk, you're a white guy from Boston, so you can't talk about like stick to your fucking lane. It's like, right, but if your criticism is that's what people do, they stay in their lane, and that like, say most comedians are straight white guys, then you're just gonna get you're gonna get comedy for straight white guys.
Just need Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. But yeah, so no, I had no doubt that it was good, but he goes hard in the paint yet again.
Yeah.
Yeah. That just seems like his thing. He's like the Wilt Chamberlain of fucking
Yeah.
comedy now.
I don't think within the like 5 specials he did is not the strongest one. Still funny. Like yeah.
The last one was fucking good, man.
Yeah,
The last one was fucking really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny when you watch like average comedians have a special and you watch it like, oh, that's why like Bill Burr, Chappelle, those guys are the greats. And,
Because
you know,
they're
Louis
bad,
CK.
because their specials that are like not so great are still an order of magnitude
Oh,
better
yeah.
than the best special from this guy. Oh, like I'm gonna watch this guy. Like, what's he known for? Like, oh, this is his good special, and you watch it and you're like, dude, this is like a 7 out of 10, like, for like general, like Chappelle's worst specials like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like this guy's best special is like a 6 or 7.
Yeah, I forgot who I was like having a conversation. It's like, oh, do you see that new either Chappelle or Rogan? I forgot which special it was. It's like, oh, did you check out that Fluffy special? I was like, it was like, let's put it on and watch it. I like 15 minutes. And I was like, this
is terrible.
No, it's not. It's middling. That's all it was. It wasn't terrible. It was just middling.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's actually kind of funny hearing comedians talk about other comedians, and you don't find those people funny, but they're apparently like really nice guys. Like John Mulaney. Any other comedian that talks about that dude, he's like the greatest dude ever. And for like all this shit. And I watched his special, like, I don't fucking get it.
And again, it's like he has some moments that are like chuckle-worthy moments, like bits that I've like remembered.
No, I can't think of anything.
But it's just like, but in general, it's like, yeah, he's great. Maybe you're like, he's not great, but like maybe he, like some more whatever. But it's like, you need to get exposure to other comedians like that are older than you and more experienced, because generally speaking, comedy is something that you get better at the older you get. It's not like math or athletics where you have like some prime. It's like some of the best comedy that George Carlin ever wrote.
And that sword through years.
It was like right before he died. Like the last 2 specials he did right before he died were probably the best comedy that he ever did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, and so you just keep following and following and following, like, because it gets better and better and better. And if it starts off pretty good, then you're like, yeah, that's why it's impressive. I don't think that, I think that comics, generally speaking, are kind of an exception to my attitude about, rich people or people that get some sort of celebrity and fame, because Chappelle now has never been hotter, but like, it's like,
but he works at it. That's the thing. He's constantly doing not tours, but just like at clubs doing.
And he has been for like 25 years.
Because it's not like a Sam Kinison where he got really famous and he didn't really work at the craft. And people are saying like, yes, it's not that good. He came by the second time around and like, he's kind of more of the same.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's just the access of like of having like a Netflix special, having a podcast and all that stuff. You have like a creative outlet to work on bits, like how Bill Burr does it.
Hmm.
He has a solo podcast and he just riffs all the time.
Yeah.
So he's constantly trying to he's he's flexing that muscle all the time.
Hmm.
And it shows up. He has new material like every 2 years.
Yeah. Well, because he's also one of those people that it's like, just like Chappelle or just like Normie, it's like you can just put them in a room with somebody and tape it, and it will be funny.
Mhm.
Like it will be funny. And then so it's like it's as funny as most stand-up specials. And then when you think that he like probably it's a springboard for some ideas, and maybe he gets a good laugh from his co-host or whoever he's the guest of, and he's like, okay, like I kind of you can see him like register that away and like sharpen it and like till it's like razor sharp and
Yeah.
concise, and it's like this bit that like flows in a comedy special, and it's like and it comes out really refined and polished. It's really really good, but all the components of it are there like just as he's talking to people on a daily basis, and that's like what good comics do. It's a constant process. But yeah, I don't know, it's like, and I feel like it's kind of a tragedy. Like I see this with Liza Schlesinger, who I think has a lot of potential as a comedian, but I sense a general reservation on her part to like be more PC. I sense it, like she doesn't like she places a lot of caveats on what she says, and kind of like, like there's this reservation where I think if she didn't have this fear that she was going to be canceled, that she could take her comedy to the next level, because she is very funny. But it's like it seems some of it just kind of seems antiseptic, and kind of it removes some of the punch from some of her jokes and her comedy, because she's so reserved, because she
She's
has
too self-aware.
yeah, she hasn't got to that, like she's almost to the cusp of that next plateau where if she wanted to, she could say whatever the fuck she wants, and as a
Yeah.
woman that would make her very unique. There are not a lot of like good lady comedians, especially the ones that I have enjoyed, generally speaking, they seem to follow the playbook for male comedians, whether it's Lisa Lampanelli or Sarah Silverman, and there's some exceptions to that,
Whitney Cummings probably
Yeah,
too.
Whitney Cummings. Who's that one chick too? The
Oh, Nikki Glazer.
Nikki Glazer. She kind of follows the playbook for like the guys that she's around, and I would say like Kathleen Madigan is probably somewhat distinct in that.
Hmm.
But Liza Schlesinger feels like she has a uniquely female point of view,
Hmm.
and there are some ripe, fertile humor in there that she could take to the next level. But I sense like this reluctance to do so, and so yeah, I think that's a real bummer. But she's still fairly young. She's only like 30 or something, isn't
Yeah,
she?
she's relatively young, like for comics.
Yeah.
So
Right.
her career just kind of really started.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing like her first a set she did was like a 15-minute set on some like comedy showcase when she was probably like 22.
Hmm.
And I was like, like this chick is funny. Like she
Yeah.
has like some potential.
And then when she did like War Paint, that was
Yeah.
really good too. I enjoyed that special. I haven't seen her a lot. I think she maybe did two more, but I haven't seen them yet.
I saw whatever the one is that's like the stage is like all nautically themed, and she's kind of got like these sailory bell bottom things
Oh,
on.
I haven't seen that one.
And I think that was her most recent one. And then yeah, I saw the other one. I have two of her hour-long specials. Like Diana likes her, but she was actually the one that brought that to my attention. She's like, I feel like I enjoy her comedy, but I feel like I can feel her like kind of pulling some punches, or like up front like placing some caveats on some like contingencies on jokes. And I feel like she's like, I feel like it kind of dulls the hilarity of her comedy,
Hmm.
and it's not necessary. It's like, yeah, I don't know, like she's concerned about seeming like she's trying to be concerned and understanding for people that she might make fun of. It's like, you're a comic. You're on stage with a mic at a comedy special. I don't need more explanation than that you're going to be making some fun of some people, and that might be people that might include me. Like, but if it's a well-told joke at my expense, it's like when you're hanging out with somebody, right? Somebody tells a well-told joke at your expense,
Like, "Mm,
your feelings aren't hurt, and you're
yeah.
probably just like, well, all right, that was a pretty good one, right?
Yeah.
And it makes you go like, I'm gonna come back with some other shit pretty quick, right? I'm gonna see what's up. Like this guy's got some chops. I'm gonna see what's up.
Mhm. All right. Running a little bit longer than usual, but got anything else?
No, we get through the list.
Not all of it. So
No.
we'll save it for you got some like good ones.
I feel like we should do a I was wrong segment.
What the
Here's
fuck?
what I was wrong about like last week or in previous weeks. The West Texas thing or the Dave and Buster's thing, and like, because I feel like constantly I'm always like, both of us are saying stuff like, I don't really know about that or whatever. It's just come back with corrections like, this is what I was wrong about. Like,
Seems like a common thing with this podcast. Like no one listens to it, not even us.
Yeah. I listened to last week's.
I actually find it funny when it was at I don't know why I continue this thing, but top meeting seeing like old friends and they're like, oh yeah, you're doing the podcast. Yeah. I listen to yeah.
I listened to it one time.
They just mentioned like, yeah, I saw you have like 90 some episodes now. I was like, oh yeah, thanks.
Good job, man.
Yeah. It was like, yeah, did you listen to any? No. I don't have time for that.
I just like that you do it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
That's fine. Whatever.
It's fine.
Yeah.
You know what? Oh my god.
Whoa.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, well that's it. I guess let's take us out. No.
Should we watch? Is there anything up we should be like talking about? Like a movie that's coming up or anything
Dune
like
comes
that?
out on the 22nd.
Oh, that's a little bit of ways, but
Yeah.
I'm
Like
trying to think. Like we used to do, like, oh, we'll watch a movie and then we'll talk about it. Actually, you had this thing on the list for a while, like top 5 albums.
Yeah, I thought it'd just be like we just do an intro. I mean, we talked a little bit about music, but I thought it'd be kind of cool. I got the idea from watching High Fidelity a while ago, where they do like top 5, whatever.
Yeah. So we just do albums next week.
We
I'll
do
pick up
albums, we do movies, we
Mhm.
do books or whatever, and just kind of segue into a conversation about like why we like the things we like. And I figured music would be a good one because you're a little more into music than I am. And we also have very
very different. Yeah.
musical tastes.
Mhm.
It's kind of like the Mount Rushmore of film scores that we did that put that in my brain about things that we could talk about. And so I feel like I do a lot of shitting on things I don't like. And I feel like it's probably important to kind of crystallize the reason I don't like those things is because the things that I do like set a high mark for certain stuff, right? The Sopranos TV show, like the movie would have been like, whatever, it's a fine movie. And I probably wouldn't have been as hard on it if it wasn't billed and compared to this thing that I already like, or, any sequel, prequel sort of thing. I feel like usually misses the mark because it's trying to clandestinely capture your enthusiasm for a thing that has yet to come out based on a thing that has already come out. And it's like, if you're going to do that, you need to fully understand why this thing enjoys such fanfare and try to tap into those same elements in a new and interesting way. And that is largely a failed social experiment, which is why I'm critical of sequels and remakes and reboots and all kinds of shit like that. Like, did you hear that they're supposedly making another Indiana Jones movie?
Yeah. I forgot who's gonna be the lead. Anyway, whatever.
Well, I'm betting that it's going to be the same problems that are with everything, because last one took place in the 1950s. When do you think this one will take place? I'm guessing it'll take place in the 1960s. Gee, that certainly seems like a very in vogue era these days. I wonder why that is. I wonder what will happen. I wonder if Indiana Jones will be
infiltrates the Black Panthers,
right, or some way be knocked down a peg by some plucky minority character who's probably a woman and totally undermine the whole. And not to mention fucking Harrison Ford's too fucking old. He's too fucking old. Let it go.
Leave me alone.
Right.
I belong in a museum.
Yeah, and they're just doing that, just gonna keep doing that with everything. They got the Bond series. That's done. It's used to be. Bond was kind of like this thing where it was like, oh, that's a thing that we could go to and enjoy that isn't poisoned by all of the fucking identity politics in film. But I think the newest one is gonna buck that trend. It's gonna be done. It's gonna undermine like some sort of
I haven't
bum.
even seen it yet.
Nope.
I'm just gonna decide that's what it is.
Well, it's based on what I know of it, the things that I know about it, and who like the rewrites and the writers and everything that are involved. It's the same thing with the Star Wars shit and the fucking what's her name that fucking just needs to put woke shit in everything that she does, and that didn't go over so well. Star Wars movies like were fucking trending down. And so now she's announced that she's doing another like show or something. That's
Who is this? I don't even know what you're talking about.
the chick that like she became the head of like Disney operations or whatever and was basically responsible for the shit show of the new Star Wars
Oh,
films.
Kathleen.
Yes,
Yeah.
that chick. That's like a thing that she's like orchestrating and it's doing very poorly. And I feel like she's not long for this world. She is not going to continue the producing world. Not like she's gonna get like a fucking she's gonna get
You get the fucking
cement
like,
shoes.
cement shoes here. You'll be
No.
sleeping with the fishes.
No, it's just like because the tensile strength of Star Wars has been tested enough to the point where people are just tired of whatever it is that she's fucking doing. They're like, this isn't like
We want Jar Jar back.
Yeah.
We want a minstrel-like character. Disguise it as an alien, so you can't say it's racist. Gotcha.
No one's defending that, but or maybe somebody is. Somebody out there must love Jar Jar Binks.
Aliens that speak in broken English and vaguely look Korean? That sounds good.
He was Korean?
Yeah.
I barely remember what that character even looks like.
Which one?
Jar Jar Binks.
Misa say you forgot?
Colin Robinson makes some references to.
Oh, does he?
And I think it's the newest episode. Yeah,
Oh,
he's like talking like that. It's like one of the characters. Like, what is that? Like trying to annoy people. Although the fucking tabernacle guy looks just like Nandor too.
Yeah, it does. I was like, once Beto mentioned it, I was like, you're right, it does.
Looks just like Nandor. Like, damn, it's good. So good. Anyway,
that does it for this week. Don't be a fool. Wash your hands before you eat the gabagool. Peace.
Thanks for listening to Mikey and the Press Pass podcast. Consider subscribing. You can rate and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere where you can listen to podcasts. And you can also write us with any ideas, suggestions, or horrible burning criticism at mikeyandthepresspass@gmail.com. Thank you.